Hi, everybody. Quick little announcement at the top. Wanted to let you know that during the month of May, the Glitterjaw Podcast Collective is seeking your feedback about the shows we create, our collective as a whole, and your podcast listening habits. So we've created a short little survey where you can share your thoughts with us. Head to bit.ly/glitterjawpod survey, and you can share your feedback. And at the end of the survey, you'll also have the option to share your email address for a chance to win a $50 gift card courtesy of the collective. Thanks so much for listening. And now it's time for the show. Welcome in to what might be the most cursed episode of this podcast to date. Episode 27 of Lee Carvallo's Potting Challenge, a Simpsons gaming podcast that looks at all the highs and lows of the Simpsons tie-in video games, plus all the billionaires and venture capital firms that shaped them. That's it. That's the intro that you are getting. I am your host, Tommy.
Oh, sorry. I crashed my car because I was picking my belly button lint. I'm Derek.
And today we are talking about a pair of lesser known pre-iOS and Android mobile phone games developed by EA in 2007 and 2008, respectively. The Simpsons Minutes to Meltdown and The Simpsons Itchy and Scratchy Land. And oh boy, these were interesting games to track down and play.
Yeah.
I assume you didn't buy an old Nokia phone to play these on, right, Derek?
No. You know what's funny, though, is that, I feel like I had my old phones for a long time, and it wasn't until maybe 10 years or so ago that
Me too.
I got rid of them and then regretted doing that because I think, that kind of old tech is still, it's, fun to still have.
Yeah.
So, in that, if I knew that I'd be doing podcasts on this stuff, I probably would have, been able, I would have kept them and would have been able to probably maybe dig them out. But although... You wouldn't be able to download these, though, on them, would you?
No. Yeah, it's funny. I was actually, in kind of doing a little bit of research for this, was kind of looking up what people were talking about with these games. And there's actually I mean, it's like anything, right? VHS tapes are kind of coming back into fashion, cassettes, things like that, old tech. And I was finding Reddit threads of people being like, I really want to play these old mobile games. Am I able to, if I bought an old phone, could I download them? And you can, as far as I am aware.
Makes sense. Is there a way to install them manually, maybe?
I'm sure there is. I'm sure that, but I will say, and I didn't actually do this, but I want to try it at some point. There are emulators on modern phones that let you emulate some of the old J2ME game, and that's Java. I believe it's such a weird acronym. It's Java 2 Platform Micro Edition is what it stands for. J2ME.
Okay. I mean, I guess I see how those words make sense, but that is a weird acronym.
It's weird. And there is a way that you can emulate on your modern day phone old J2ME files. Now, not all of them work, and that's a whole conversation. I had trouble getting Itchy and Scratchy Land to work, which is a bummer because that is the one that I was most interested in playing. But I mean, they're both pretty similar to begin with anyway. But were you able to play both of them, or did you? Because I wasn't able to get Itchy and Scratchy Land to work.
When you said you couldn't, I was like, if you can't, I'm not going to be able to. So I just watched the video for Itchy and Scratchy Land. I did play the Minutes to Meltdown since that was pretty easy to just play on the browser.
Yeah, and anyone who is listening, if you want to check out that game, I think it's worth just playing through it. It's literally, and we'll talk about this when we get to the game. It's 30 minutes, like that is
Yeah.
it. Like, and not even like it takes you 30 minutes to complete it. You only have 30 minutes to play it,
Yeah.
which is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But you can play that in browser. The other one, there's ROM files and things like that for it, but for whatever reason, getting those old mobile phone emulators to work is just a bear, and it was not something I was able to make work. I was able to kind of get it to work some of the times, but
Oh,
it just would
really?
like crash and stuff. Yeah, and so, I'm sure there's some people out there that might have some tips. If you do share them with me, I'd still love to actually play the game because I want to try to play through everything. But I do want to ask real quick, just off the top, did you, before smartphones, did you have any like mobile phone games that you played?
Yeah. I mean, I think the problem with those, a lot of them, I mean, obviously, old phones came with like Snake, right? Like that type of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, I don't know that counts because it's not like a downloadable thing and it's like a very simple like pixel game. But I definitely enjoyed playing. I still think Snake is a fun game. It's called Snake, right?
Hell yeah. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A Snake is really fun to play. So I play that. But what this era of mobile game, you're literally like going into a store and downloading it essentially, and paying money for it. The only one that I can remember ever getting would have been around 2005. So I think it still would have been my Nokia kind of blue brick phone. And it was a Fantastic Four game that was a tie-in with the Fantastic Four movie. I can't tell you why I chose to get it, and like why that was the game out of all of them that I like. But I know that I spent money on it. I remember because it was like a big deal for me to be like, I'm going to purchase something on my phone, a thing that that is not normal and that my parents would shake their heads at. But I'm going to do it anyway and spent, $2 or something on this Fantastic Four game that I remember thinking was fine at the time. Like it was a nice thing to, I specifically bought it because I was working at Kings Dominion at the time and I had a lot of downtime in between stuff. And I have a very distinct memory of being at this live show that they were doing where they were reuniting the cast of Guiding Light, the soap opera Guiding Light. I talked about this on a Gimmicks episode that we did on Days of Our Lives, maybe a year or so ago. But I didn't watch the soap opera. So I was just like this, like 15 or 16-year-old usher, essentially, like just person helps them to their seats and then watches in case there's questions or whatever. So like watching this like live show with this cast of a soap opera that I had no context for. And I remember just sitting there in the back, just playing this Fantastic Four game, and you can choose to be like Mr. Fantastic would stretch out and roll around as like a circle for some reason. The thing would like punch people. Human Torch was on fire, obviously, and I don't remember what Invisible Woman did, but obviously she did something with force fields. But like I don't have like memories of it being particularly good or anything, but it was like a great time killer to kill time on my phone before it was a thing you could do to kill time on your phone, and that felt really special and magical to me. And then once smartphones became a thing, it was like, oh, I can do that thing I did with that Fantastic Four game, but like now every second of my life, basically. So yeah. That's the only game I remember actually buying. I definitely like played Candy Crush and stuff when that happened, but by that point there were already like it was also a smartphone. So like that in between time where it was like your QWERTY keyboard, or your slide out keyboard or anything like that, like any of those phones, I don't think I ever got games on them. I think I avoided that, which I'm kind of glad that I did, because I think I saved a little bit of like phone time in my life. Like there's a little bit less time spent on my phone in the grand scope of my life, because now there's like no turning back and I'm never not going to be staring at my phone. So
right, yeah, exactly. I mean those so those phones, I think most people, there was kind of the in between time, right, of like and the history of like cell phones is fascinating, but like the once you got into this sort of era, and we're talking about like I think it's like 2005, maybe even earlier than that too, like basically up to the release of like the first iPhone and Android, which was like 2008, 2009, somewhere around that part. Anyway, in that like sort of gap, right? There's this like, essentially they call them feature phones. That's what a lot of these phones were called. Those sort of like, not like the traditional, very like old school screen phone that had like, you could still play Snake on that, but it was like the black and green like blocks.
Yeah, right.
This is like, it's a full color screen, has access to the internet, and you can download, basically most of them were like, again, they were like Java platform games, not as sophisticated necessarily, or even close to sophisticated as games that you can play on your phone and tablets and things like that today. Right. But they were like actual games, full color games, and you would use your phone's keypads, because this is also like mostly pre-touchscreen and things like that as well.
Oh, for sure.
And so feature phones were like a big thing in that era, right? So it's like it's called a feature phone because it's not a smartphone, but it did have a lot of like quote unquote features. Like you could access the internet, you could download games, you could texting and things like that were still, that's super new, but still relatively new. And so anyway, it's a really fascinating era because, there was a lot of limitations, right? Like in terms of what you could do with the hardware and the tech. And it, again, is before this era where we're just all like kind of staring at our screens constantly. And like, it's kind of hard to like, if like you're, Gen Z or, I would say younger, but I can't imagine anyone younger than Gen Z listening to us. Oh, but if you're like Gen Z and you basically just grew up with a smartphone, like it's hard to really conceptualize like what not having a smartphone probably was like.
It really did change the world. Like it is one of the, like, I do think that history will really show that there was a major turning point around 2007 when the iPhone was introduced. It did genuinely change the world to a degree that like few other introductions of technology can. Like there's only a handful of inventions out there. It is one of those top tier inventions. Whether you think it was a net positive for the world or not, it was a major change to just how society worked and how we use technology. And it is weird to think about how much just radically shifted just by the introduction of that one device.
100%. And it's just so fascinating to think about like that, like this kind of bridge, right? Like between what early cell phones were and then what they would become. Because like, I think, and even if you like go back and look at some of those, feature phones at the time, like it's such a different experience than just like what you have today. And to be fair, like early Android and early iOS were also like different experiences too, but
it was still
it was still a massive, massive jump. And especially when it comes to things like gaming, I think, but anyway, there's a lot of nostalgia, I think, for that era because I'll just say I personally didn't play a ton of games on my phone at the time. I think pre me getting, it wasn't really until college that I had a quote unquote feature phone, and I just wasn't really that interested in playing games on it because I had like a Nintendo DS, a PSP. So like if I want to play portable games, I have other ways to do that. And then when Android come out, I got an Android phone, and I felt like it was more like the gaming capabilities were more touted as like a thing you could do on those phones, whereas like when you look at like some of the old like documentation, but like magazines and stuff that are advertising like pre-Android, pre-iOS games, it's such like a weird, and we'll talk a little bit about it in a bit, but it's like, it's such a weird way that they're trying to describe it to you, where it's like once Android and iPhone like came out, it was like, oh, you have this thing, and you play a real game on it, not like, trying to be like, you could play games wherever you're at. Like, I don't know. It's a weird sort of like dichotomy between the two. And so anyway, when I did get like an Android phone, I did like test out like gaming and stuff like that on it. But before that, I was not really playing anything other than, like you said, like the Snake and I think there was probably like a card game or something like that I would play every now and again. But
something like that.
Even at that, it was like, it just wasn't something that I was like pulling up that often.
Right. It's just, they were never fun. They were never fun enough or long enough. I mean, I think a thing to speak to with these games that we're going to talk about today is that like, they're not made with the mindset of people are going to be committed to sitting down to their phone to beating this game. It's like they were thinking of it like here's just a little feature that we can include in the same way that we give you bonus ringtones, and a thing that maybe you'll just pull out in the doctor's office waiting room for like 5 minutes at a time and not really pay a lot of attention to. So like, and I don't think games even today, like mobile games are designed to be a big time suck and everything, which I'm sure we'll talk about when we get to Tapped Out.
Yeah.
But like this era, they weren't looking at microtransactions or trying to get you to play the game. It was just like, we'll make a couple of bucks of selling you another feature with some ringtones, and then they may or may not play it for more than 5 minutes and barely pay attention to it. And that's it.
Yep. Well, speaking of great evils in this world, we got a big topic to talk about before we get into the actual game, and I want to ask another silly question before we get into this. Mm-hmm. What do you think of, Derek, when you hear EA?
I think of the video game industry being really upsetting. But I do also think of some games. I mean, I think of Mass Effect, but I will say I don't think of it in a good way. I think of it being like everything that's wrong with Mass Effect I associate with EA. You know what I mean? And there's definitely other games that I'm sure you'll bring them up, but it's I mean, this is today. I don't know if you asked me this question 10 years ago, I'm sure I would have had a different answer. But at this point, I just associate EA with just like a drowning industry thanks to a major corporation.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I should note one of the reasons why we want to talk about EA is because, of course, they become the publisher for Simpsons titles post Hit and Run, and they are the publisher for these two games that we're going to talk about today. And, you know, I mean, for me, anytime I hear EA, I can't get the EA Sports "It's in the Game" out of my head. That's
God.
That's always been in my head.
Yeah.
Constantly running through it.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
That's the first thing I think of. But then, the second thing I think of is, oh boy, this is a massive company that has done some pretty outrageous things and pretty shitty things. So, you know, for folks who might not be aware, I feel like EA is one of those companies that even if you're not a gamer, it's a household name. EA is just a company that you will know about. And part of the reason for that is like, depending on like your measure of quote size, whether it's revenue, market cap, sales, generally speaking, EA is in the top 10 biggest gaming companies and often in the top 5. And that's like underneath of like Nintendo and Sony and things like that. So like they are one of the big entities, one of the biggest entities in gaming, and have been for quite a while. So it's kind of impossible not to know who they are. And even for folks who don't play the games, it's impossible to not even know. You know, people would know of things like The Sims and Bejeweled and Plants vs. Zombies. And of course, EA Sports, what I just mentioned, like every single NHL title, NCAA, FIFA, and then of course, Madden NFL.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's funny because I knew that they had a lot of properties, and I'm sure if you asked me to list them, I could list a bunch of them, and I still would have forgotten, like, they also did The Sims, they also did Bejeweled, they also did Plants vs. Zombies. That's so wild.
Yeah, and I mean, like, those are just ones that, like, I think your everyday person would you would know those even if you didn't know if it's necessarily EA, but it's like, oh yeah, I know The Sims. Oh yeah, I know Bejeweled. Like, my mom played Bejeweled like, for a very long time, you know?
Yeah, wow.
Of course, more entrenched gaming enthusiasts would probably know them as publisher for other franchises, including Need for Speed, Dead Space, Dragon Age, Star Wars, many Star Wars games, and then, of course, Mass Effect. Mm-hmm. Which sucks that you know, they're tied to some of those properties.
Well, some of those properties have very good games, but some of them also have games that have problems that you can directly blame on EA in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Weren't there loot boxes in Mass Effect Andromeda or something like that? Or some sort of microtransaction-y thing was in Mass Effect Andromeda. I remember reading about that.
I don't remember.
But something like that. But we'll talk about that in a second. And again, like, even if you don't know those things, I would say that many, many, many entrenched gamers and honestly, some that are non-gamers are likely full aware of the many controversies that the company has faced. The most recent of which occurred in September of 2025, when it was announced the company would be acquired by an investor group in the largest private equity buyout in history. Not gaming history, the largest single private equity buyout in history of any company, which, according to the Associated Press, includes the private equity firms Silver Lake and Affinity Partners, the latter of which is managed by Jared Kushner, the son-in-law to Donald Trump, and Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, who would be a majority owner of the company once the deal goes through.
Video game maker Electronic Arts announcing a $55 billion deal to go private in what is set to be the largest leveraged buyout deal in Wall Street history, led by the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia. Steve Kovac has more in today's Tech Check. Steve.
Yeah, this is a big one because I really wanted to look, Sarah, into the Saudi Public Investment Fund and all the money it's been spending on gaming as it's been pushing over the years to build a video game juggernaut. It's encompassing everything from the hottest mobile gaming properties to giant esports tournaments out there in Saudi Arabia. Now, the WSJ report that came out on Friday initially about this deal sent shares of Take-Two Interactive and Roblox higher on this idea that there's going to be even more consolidation and M&A in the video game space. And if that's the case, the PIF actually already stands to benefit as it's been gathering stakes in major gaming companies for some time now. Within that PIF gaming empire, before today's announcement, it already owned nearly 10% of Electronic Arts, which will, of course, be rolled into its ownership stake in this new deal. It also owns about 6% of Grand Theft Auto maker Take-Two and about 4% of Japanese Nintendo. Plus, it acquired the Pokemon Go game this spring for $3.5 billion and bought the parent company of Monopoly Go, which is a huge mobile game, for almost $5 billion. It's also sponsoring huge esports competitions like the annual Esports World Cup in Riyadh that's been held the last 2 years. And Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman himself is a gamer and a key driver behind all those deals. And David Faber, by the way, reporting this morning, Sarah, the PIF is, of course, going to own a majority of EA after this deal closes, with Affinity and Silver Lake splitting the rest. It also comes amid a slump in the video game industry. Just take a look at EA's annual revenues over the last 5 years, relatively stagnant over the last 3 coming out of the COVID lockdowns. And the stock is up only 56% in that period, lagging behind the S&P, which is up about 100% in the same time. And Electronic Arts is going to be taking on about $20 billion in debt to finance its part of the deal, which could put pressure on the company to keep costs down or add more monetization options to their games to juice growth. Now, this deal is not done yet, Sarah. EA has 45 days, according to David Faber, to solicit other offers before taking this one, guys.
Of course, the street, Steve, is anxious to name other names that might benefit from a continuation of this trend. Take-Two gets mentioned,
course,
obviously.
yeah.
Roblox today. Even AppLovin I'm seeing on some desk notes this morning.
Yeah, Apple, and I would definitely look at Take-Two for a big one. Roblox is kind of a secular story here. They're actually growing like crazy this year. I forget what their stock is up now, but they've been having a killer run just in terms of users and revenue growth. You don't see that so much as at Take-Two and the more traditional gaming publishers. And of course, there was Activision. I bet Microsoft kind of regrets now buying Activision for as much as they did, because as they were going through that process in 2022, 2023, just so much of the value of that company was already left because of the slump in gaming I told you about. So there are a lot of, there aren't too many public companies left to be in the crosshairs. I was joking earlier, Carl, that I'm running out of public gaming companies to cover because they either get acquired or go private, it seems like.
Yeah, and I mean, it's private equity, right? And I mean, EA is like obviously in its current state not a great company, but it's not going to get better, right? Like it's not going to get better after this happens.
Yeah,
like I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I've seen is of all the complaints about EA, they have been with some of their games, Dragon Age, Mass Effect, fairly at least okay with having like queer characters and queer relationships and things like that. And you know, there's a big question mark of like, once this deal goes through, is that stuff just gonna go by the wayside, you know, and not gonna happen anymore. There's also like how involved is, you know, Silver Lake and Affinity Partners and, you know, Saudi Arabia going to be in like the actual day to day?
Do they give a shit versus just like give us a cut of the profits? That's all we care about, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and then cutting budgets and shit like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean they'll care about the content. But it's still like a thing to be worried about for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and my understanding too is I think there have been other, like, they've invested in other companies as well. Saudi Arabia has, and I think they've even invested in several gaming companies prior to this too. So it's not like a new thing, but still, this made big news like when it was announced.
Yeah. It's just so outside of my scope of like understanding of the world, because it's so like I don't understand. Yeah, it's just all that stuff is so weird.
I may not know like much about it, but I know that this feels
feels bad,
right?
Yeah,
it
for
feels
sure.
Bad
Vibes.
Yeah, bad vibes. And of course, I mean, even prior to like the announcement of this acquisition, the name EA had already become synonymous with flawed, monopolistic corporatization and often predatory practices in the gaming industry among gamers. Beginning in the late 90s, I mean, the company, I wouldn't say that that's where that sort of like, they weren't known as that in the late 90s, but beginning in that time period, the company, after going through several leadership changes and lead up in that time, kind of undergoes a period of massive growth and begins acquiring other gaming developers and publishers. From 1987, when the company makes their first acquisition, to today, EA has acquired nearly 50 other gaming entities, with almost half of those now defunct. So like, buying out other companies and absorbing them, and many of them just becoming defunct after that.
Did they buy Activision, or am I confusing that with another
That's Activision
company?
Blizzard.
Okay. It's another one that we don't like, right?
Yes. Absolutely another one that we don't like, but I'm just making sure that they're two separate entities.
Okay.
It's another big one, but
it's just like, it's one of those things where, especially given how like the entertainment industry is and the movie industry is and everything, it's like I wouldn't be surprised if eventually those two things merge. I
could see that in like the next like 5 years or something.
Yeah.
Like, why, you know, EA or Activision Blizzard, like just the merger happening, like why wouldn't it? You know, at this point, it's just kind of like, sure, do it.
Just have,
who cares?
We only need 3 companies to rule the world. That's fine.
Yeah, honestly, just kill off the gaming industry at this point. Like, we don't need it. Sorry, I'm being I don't know what the word is, but I'm being very down on it. But
these games didn't inspire you. About the art of video games.
But I do think it's really like fascinating. And put a pin into the art of video games piece there, because I do think we'll touch on that. Sure. I do think it is like the acquisition piece is like something that they get called out for quite a bit. And again, I mentioned it starts in 1987. That's not like their sole intent early on. It really ramps up like at a period of time, like in that like late 90s, early 2000s period. And then it just is like sort of a, unstoppable force, like at a certain point of just, you know, there's competition, buy them up, absorb them, and if you can't beat them, buy them is kind of what ends up happening a lot of the times. And related to its somewhat insatiable appetite for growth is its treatment of its employees, with several flashpoint events landing the company in the industry spotlight over the course of the past decade. So one such event was that it was named the worst company in America by Consumerist magazine in 2012, beating out Bank of America in the final round.
Wow, that's kind of hilarious.
It's so funny to me. The Consumerist wrote of the company receiving the quote award that readers ultimately decided that the type of greed exhibited by EA, which is supposed to be making the world a more fun place, is worse than Bank of America's avarice, which some would argue is the entire point of operating a bank.
Yeah, which is pretty bleak when it's like a company making like video game, like making an art form, essentially. Like at the end of the day, it's supposed to be a company making art, and that's more greedy than a bank is. That's so bleak, man.
Yep. A year later, it wins the distinction a second time.
God.
The only company at that point in time to win twice in a row, winning over Facebook, Ticketmaster, Halliburton, Walmart, Comcast, and once again being out Bank of America and receiving 78% of the vote.
Is when they're calling it worst company, is it like a company to work for, or just business practices in the way that they are in their respective industries?
It's consumer like facing.
Oh, consumer.
It's like
okay.
how
okay.
it treats its consumers.
Absolutely. Okay, that makes sense.
Not to say that its
Right.
business practices for its employees would have gotten it any awards, but
Sure, but that is an important distinction to make, because I think then when you're thinking of like Ticketmaster, pretty famously horrible to anyone who uses it, and that's not even as bad as EA is. That's really wild.
Electronic Arts COO Peter Moore has responded to a recent poll in which EA was chosen as a semi-finalist for, quote, worst company in America, an honor it also received last year. In a lengthy blog post called We Can Do Better, Moore explained that EA has made mistakes, but went on to defend the company. Quote, are we really the worst company in America, Moore asked. I'll be the first to admit that we've made plenty of mistakes. These include server shutdowns too early, games that didn't meet expectations, missteps on new pricing models, and most recently, severely fumbling the launch of SimCity. We owe gamers better performance than this, end quote. Moore also posted a list responding to recent complaints, commenting that, quote, some of these complaints are 100% legitimate, but that others just don't hold water. He listed, many continue to claim the always-on function of SimCity is a DRM scheme. It is not. People still want to argue about it. We can't be any clearer. It's not. Period. Some claim there is no room for Origin as a competitor to Steam. 45 million registered users are proving them wrong. Some people think that free-to-play games and microtransactions are a pox on gaming. Tens of millions more are playing and loving those games. We've seen mailing lists that direct people to vote for EA because they disagree with the choice of the cover athlete on Madden NFL. Yes, really. Most disturbing though, Moore wrote, quote, in the past year we have received thousands of emails and postcards protesting against EA for allowing players to create LGBT characters in our games. This week, we're seeing posts on conservative websites urging people to protest our LGBT policy by voting EA the worst company in America, end quote. Moore went on to add, if that's what makes us the worst company, bring it on, because we aren't caving on that. Moore concluded by saying, we can do better. We will do better, but I am damn proud of this company, the people around the globe who work at EA, the games we create, and the people that play them. The tallest trees catch the most wind. At EA, we remain proud and unbowed.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I think there's a little silliness with this, in terms, because it is a vote, right? Like it's people voting on this.
Okay,
too.
that's fair. Yeah, I didn't know that part of it.
But it's also just like, I mean, it is a recognition of like the company being not great for consumers. And I'll just read this from when they announced that it won the second time. So they say, Consumers writes, following last year's surprise worst company in America victory by Electronic Arts, there was hope that the video game giant would get the message. Stop treating your customers like human piggy banks and don't put out so many incomplete and or broken games with the intent of getting your customers to pay extra for what should have been received in the first place. And yet, here again, with EA becoming the first company to ever win the second golden poo from consumers readers, it's silly, yeah. And then they just talk about like what did they not do that they should have done, and they mention like provide a product people want and like, and support your products you sell. Now I will note again, this is a consumers are voting on this, and this comes on the heels of Mass Effect 3's ending, Dead Space introducing like microtransactions and stuff like that. So like you have a constituent that is an already vocal population online. Yeah,
and not a lot of even some of those fans might be on the right side of history, but are also some of the most annoying people alive too. Yeah, and not always vocal for the right reasons either. So yeah, it's like you have to take a lot of this with a grain of salt, but I do think it is still worth pointing out that the company becomes kind of synonymous with bad business practices, whether they truly objectively are the worst company in the world. The fact that they are known publicly as that, it does still say something for sure.
Yeah. I think it does just call attention to just bad consumer practices that the company sort of evolves into over their lifetime. And some of those business practices include what a lot of people probably know them for and know the criticisms about. They've been criticized for using pay-to-win progression systems, microtransactions, and then especially loot boxes, the latter of which landed them in trouble with government entities in the UK, where they defended their use of loot boxes by claiming they aren't loot boxes, but rather surprise mechanics, which have been around, according to EA's VP of Legal and Government Affairs individual at the time, quote, for years, whether it's Kinder Eggs, Hatchimals, or LOL Surprise. Like, wow. They literally defended in, like, you know, like the UK Parliament, the use of loot boxes by saying they're just like Kinder Eggs.
That's really stupid.
Also, a really bad defense when you think about who Kinder Eggs, Hatchimals, and LOL Surprise are aimed at, right? Like, you're talking about a system wherein, like, actual things were locked behind paywalls, or that you could progress faster by paying things to have a chance to unlock a better character or better, you know, whatever.
Literally gambling, man. That's just
right.
That's
yeah.
all
Like,
is.
it's like, it's child gambling. Like, at that point, you're talking about, oh, it's Kinder Eggs have surprise mechanics. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems gross to me.
Yeah.
But, and then finally, there's the worst of its kind of greed-driven sins, its treatment of its employees, which has seen the company facing 2 class action lawsuits with artists and engineers seeking unpaid overtime to the tune of a total of $30.5 million across both of those class action lawsuits. And I want to ask Eric, do you know or do you remember hearing about EA Spouse?
I do not. No.
So EA Spouse was the username used by Aaron Hoffman, who is a game dev, blogger, and writer. And she posted at the time an anonymous live journal article titled EA, The Human Story. And it was an extremely detailed account from the perspective of the significant other of an employee at the company, who was at the time experiencing some of the worst imaginable crunch with no compensation at all. So we talked about kind of the consumer focusing things of it, and we hinted at like some of the treatment of employees. Those consumers polls don't take into effect how bad it is for the people working for them.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's all kind of entangled though, because I think, you know, especially when the sort of idea of crunch became more talked about, like, you can notice when there's a lot of crunch in a game. It comes up when we talk about these things too. And the things that consumers complain about when they buy a game that feels like it's unfinished because of the crunch that they were put under. Right. So like, it's all tied up together.
Yeah. So I remember hearing a little bit about this at the time, but I wasn't like that tapped into it. But reading the article kind of in prep for talking about EA, I think really like in this article actually it kind of like sparks a wildfire. I think once it comes out. It sort of begins detailing her significant other's interview process and how he was asked how he felt about working long hours and how a, quote, pre-crunch or mild crunch period was introduced in some projects early on in order to stave off larger crunch. So the pre-crunch was kind of this, they were like, we're going to do this so that we don't have to crunch really bad at the end. So early on, we're just going to have like these, 8-hour, 6-day-a-week work days with a termination date well before the game or the product was supposed to then ship, right? So it's like, okay, cool. So they're putting this into place. We're going to work a little harder at the onset so that we don't have to like, the deadline doesn't come up and then we have to like really, really spend a lot of time working hard at the very end. And I'm just going to read a little bit from the post here because I think the way she writes about it really illuminates some of the working conditions. And so talking about that sort of like date that they give, she says that date came and went and went and went. When the next news came, it was not about a reprieve. It was another acceleration. 12 hours, 6 days a week, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Weeks passed. Again, the producers had given a termination date on this crunch that again they failed. Throughout this period, the project remained on schedule. The long hours started to take its toll on the team. People grew irritable and some started to get ill. People dropped out in droves for a couple of days at a time, but then the team seemed to reach equilibrium again and they plowed ahead. The manager stopped even talking about a day when the hours would go back to normal. Oof. Now, it seems, is the real crunch, the one the producers of this title so wisely prepared their team for by running them into the ground ahead of time. The current mandated hours are 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week, with the occasional Saturday evening off for good behavior at 6:30 p.m.
Like it's a prison.
Yeah. This averages out to an 85 hours work week.
Jeez. Like,
yeah. 9 to 10.
I've worked, in my career in places where it's like, oh, it's busy season now, and everyone, and it's like all hands on deck, and then the busy season just like never ends, and then you're just busy like that forever. Mm-hmm. And that's frustrating. That's very frustrating. That's still very different than like, we're literally making you work 85 hours or you're fired, basically. Like that is, it's not overtime. That's just like, that is the standard. That is what we were requiring of you for the pay that we hired you at, when I'm sure when they were hired, it was a 40-hour-a-week job.
Yeah. Well, and especially since they literally like prep them, and she's writing about, like, she's writing this article as it's happening, right? So she's writing about like this process as they're experiencing it and being told, okay, you're going to put in a few extra hours at the start. In 3 months, that's going to end, and we're going to be in great shape to just cruise to the deadline. To have that happen and then be told, actually, we need to push that date back a little bit because we're still running behind schedule, and then push it back again. And then even still after that, have that increase and then have that increase again. Like that is like completely unsustainable, right? Like even from like a business practice standpoint, I don't know how like everybody doesn't just quit, but obviously we know why that doesn't happen, because people need jobs, right? Like you can't just quit.
And also like, I mean, there are probably a lot of people here who like want to make video games. Like this is probably theoretically it's a dream job for them to be able to work for a big company to make a AAA video game. It's probably something they've always wanted to do. And it's sort of like, well, it doesn't make sense for me to leave my dream job here. Maybe this is just how, like, you can convince yourself that, like, I guess this is just how it is. And I think that's how I think that's why a lot of like creative folks get especially taken advantage of in these industries by companies, because you are it's hard enough to get a job in the arts in any capacity. But like, if you're able to do it for a big company where you have a lot of, where there's like a big enough cash flow that you can work on these big, huge projects that are going to look really good on your resume, companies will take even more advantage of it because they know how hard it is to find a job in this industry. They know how hard it must be to leave. And they know that you actually probably do really want to be there. And they're going to overwork you to the bone, because it's like, well, what are you going to fucking do? Like leave and not work your dream job? Like, come on.
Yeah. Also, like, maybe you'll go to another gaming company and EA will just buy that one up, like, and you might end up right back there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So like it is. Yeah. And I think like, there's a whole conversation to have about like the idea of crunch and like how it's like, what's the easiest way to make more money? Ship things faster. Like it doesn't matter if it like works or is good. You just got to get it out the door and then move on to the next thing, so that then you can get the next thing out the door, right? Like it's this hyper acceleration that like, has been happening for years and years and years. And I feel like we're at a point in society where we're like reaching like the upper limits of like that, right? And that's now why like AI is being introduced, where it's like, well, we can't make people work literally any harder, any faster. So we have to like introduce tools that, and I'm using air quotes for tools, we have to introduce these things that then will like find ways to cut corners so that it can still happen faster.
Yeah.
Like,
it's all about increased productivity, not like actual, not an actually like good product at the end. It's like, how do we make something that people will pay for, and maybe they don't notice that it's worse, but we'll pay the same amount for it. It's why I always get frustrated when people get mad when something gets delayed or like a release date changes
Yeah.
or for movies too, like video games and movies, when release date gets delayed, it's sort of like, no, that's a good thing. That means that they are being willing to put more time into making it as good as it can be. Sometimes there's other factors. There's probably drama around the scenes.
Yeah.
But like the fucking next Spider-Verse movie, if that doesn't come out until 2037, fine, great. If that means that there were like a better working conditions for them and they made it a better movie, I am happy to wait a long time. Same with video games, but like, yeah. So like, I get frustrated when people complain about that. It's like, don't make the companies think that you're willing, that you want this to be faster, because that's going to make everything worse for you. That's how you get games that are half finished, that cut corners, that don't work, that are rush jobs, that are at the cost of employees' health,
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that's frustrating about that too is like, I think even now, and I can't think of a specific example for this, but I feel like I remember like reading about this or just seeing discussions about it. Even now, when things do get delayed, like if EA delays a game, that doesn't mean that they're like delaying it because they're trying to like not crunch their employees. They probably are crunching their employees, and they set a completely unrealistic ship date and still are crunching their employees, realize they're not going to make that ship date and are delaying it, and then they're going to be crunched even longer too. So like there is like this sort of like weird dichotomy where it's like obviously I 100% agree with you. Like if something needs to be delayed, delay it. But there is also this thing in the back of my mind where it's like, well, these companies probably already knew they weren't going to meet that date and are still pushing people. Cause like, I mean, I'm going to be fucking honest. I deal with that in my job.
I do
where
too.
It's like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Same.
Everybody knows like at the start, it's like, we're not going to make this date happen.
Yeah.
Like, so we're going to rush and rush and rush.
It's a weird executive thing of like over promising. And it's like, it's so weird because it's so counter to anything I've ever been taught my entire life of just like, don't over promise things, because then when you don't over promise and under deliver, because you're going to make yourself look bad. Every single fucking executive seems to have learned the opposite lesson. It over promises everything constantly. And it's so weird. And then blames everyone under them. Like what, that we weren't able to meet their high standard, but it's just like, you gave it your standard is impossible though. Like it baffles me. I don't get it.
I don't get it. But I mean, I think you see like that in like this, like in this industry and in this discussion. And I just want to finish up with just two other real quick quotes from this article, because again, I think like this was like reading through this, like it's such a different experience, like reading through someone's thoughts of like this happening at the time, and then also now having like the hindsight, right, to like look back at this and know like this was probably like one of the worst periods for video game crunch, but also like things haven't necessarily gotten and stayed that much better.
Yeah.
And she says, the stress is taking its toll. After a certain number of hours spent working, the eyes start to lose focus. After a certain number of weeks, the only one day off fatigue starts to accrue and accumulate exponentially. There is a reason why there are 2 days in a weekend. Bad things happen to one's physical, emotional, and mental health if these days are cut short. The team is rapidly beginning to introduce as many flaws as they are removing. And then she goes on to talk quite a bit about the fact that they're not getting anything for this crunch. She says, for the honor of this treatment, EA's salaried employees receive A, no overtime, B, no comp time, C, no additional sick or vacation leave. The time just goes away. And so that kind of is like, again, this article comes out, it becomes a really big flashpoint. And I mentioned those two lawsuits, those class action lawsuits. I believe her fiance, who she's writing about at the time, is like one of the people who is involved in those class action lawsuits.
Wow.
And I think it is probably one of this article, probably in the discussion that it sparks, is one of the reason that I think those class action lawsuits are probably able to go through, and really does help. I think after this happens, there is a shift in, EA saying that they're changing things. In fact, Aaron even like goes on to found an organization that like tries to like look at like gaming companies and make sure that they're, treating their employees well and things like that. It doesn't exist anymore. But we know that like even after all of that happens, the shift backwards still comes back, right? Like,
Right.
and it's all profit driven. Like, it is all about, making sure that like things can ship fast, things can get out, and like then they can move on to the next thing so that they can keep putting products out, whether they're complete or not, whether they work well, whether people like them, just so they can move on to the next one and get more games on shelves.
Yeah. Do you think this is where kind of the casual people just really learned the term crunch and that concept?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's really wild.
I think so. I mean, I don't, well, I shouldn't say that. I think that this helps like bring awareness to it,
Okay.
but I think that like I think it's one of the things that helps people kind of like learn about it. But then also there's like tons of articles and stuff like that written about this. And,
Right.
So it does become like a really big, just like I said, flashpoint. And one of the reasons why this is kind of a weird way to start like the history, because like we're starting at like the end point and working our way back. But one of the reasons why, and one of the reasons why I wanted to start at the top of like what we think about when we hear EA is because like the name EA is Electronic Arts, and what they become and what they are now is such a far cry from what the company was, and sort of the ideology and like the deliberate sort of mindset that they have with naming the company when it is founded.
Yeah.
Right? Like they literally have arts in the name. Like you don't think about that, right? Like when you think about like EA or Electronic Arts, it's like they were thinking about that at the time when they named the company or renamed the company to Electronic Arts.
Yeah. I will say it wasn't a Far Cry because Far Cry is Ubisoft. So
another great company.
never done anything wrong.
Yeah. So I will touch really quick. We're not going to spend that much more time on this, but I do just want to mention just a real quick, like actual like starting of the company, because I think there is a really interesting parallel that we see here with the company. Again, what it was founded and like sort of the mindset behind it and what it ends up becoming. And so in 1982, a man named William Murray Hawkins III, aka Trip Hawkins, decides to leave his job at Apple and found his own software company, and he names it Amazing Software.
Okay.
But very quickly after he gathers staff, they workshop a new name because Amazing Software isn't that great of a name.
Nope.
And they wanted to highlight the artistry of game creation by calling it Electronic Arts. And that is a mindset that sort of cements itself in the early years of EA's life. There really is, like, when you start diving into the history of EA, it feels like a tale of like two completely different entities, like the first few years into what it ends up becoming. And I do just want to, before I go further, shout out, there is an extremely detailed history of EA that folks should absolutely check out. It's titled We See Farther, A History of Electronic Arts, and it was written by Jeffrey Fleming in 2007. So obviously it's not a full, complete picture,
Right,
because it's 20 years old at this point, but for those early years, it's pretty comprehensive.
Sure.
And so that'll be linked in our sources doc if people want to check it out. I really had a great time reading that article. And one thing that article does that many sort of early histories of EA notes is that EA is really founded off of Trip Hawkins' sort of like passion about games. He's very passionate, and he's specifically passionate about, he plays D&D, and he gets sort of addicted to this game called Strat-O-Matic Football. Had you ever heard of this?
Oh, I want to say no, but I'm looking at the pictures you posted, and this weirdly looks familiar to me. So maybe, but I could be thinking of something else, but I feel like I've seen something like this before.
I wonder, because like, I mean, I don't know if your dad would be into this, but this feels like a very dad game.
I feel like my dad might have had something, if not this exactly, something like this.
So it is for listeners, it is essentially a board game that lets you use like literally like tabletop mechanics to play football. Like you track stats, you track numbers and things like that.
Sure, it makes sense.
And it's a really fascinating thing. And of course, someone who is interested in like something like this would also be interested in Dungeons and Dragons.
Absolutely, yeah, it makes sense.
And so he basically says like one of the reasons like after school and everything like that he founds EA is because he wanted the excuse to make another football game. And I say another because he actually tries to make a competitor to Strat-O-Matic Football when he's a teenager. So I'm going to quote from an article from ESPN's Outside the Lines. Patrick Hruby writes, a bright and precocious teenager, Hawkins created a that is the hardest name to say. Strat-O-Matic knockoff and attempted to start a business. His next door neighbor in La Jalapa, California was former AFL president Milt Woodard, which gave Hawkins the opportunity to send a proposal to the Kansas City Chiefs owner Lamar Hunt. Hunt wrote back, beat it, kid. No matter. Hawkins still ordered parts, set up an assembly line in his family living room, and borrowed $5,000 from his father and took out ads in NFL game programs to promote his version of this Strat-O-Matic football, which he then loses every single penny on.
Wow.
Which I was like reading. It's funny because like I think a lot of articles like promote this as like being fairly quaint. Like, oh, his dad gives him like $5,000 to make his own board game. But like, this is like the late 60s, early 70s. $5,000 adjusted for inflation is like $40,000 to $45,000 today.
An investment in a company.
He's a teenager.
Wild. I mean, it is interesting. I mean, there's never a million years I could have had parents who could have invested $45,000, the equivalent of $45,000 into any project I had. So, there's obviously some level of privilege there, but it is interesting because this really does feel like someone who's just very enthusiastic and passionate about gaming who wants to make games. Like, that feels pretty cool. Like, I can get behind that.
Yeah. I mean, yes, there is a level of like when I was putting this together, I was like, of course, this guy gets like a small loan from his dad when he's a teenager and still ends up going to Harvard.
Yeah, so he's fine. It's cool. But it's still like you read all those stories of like the trust fund kids and it's just like, that's how I pulled myself up on my bootstraps and also $100,000 from my parents. But this does feel like he was trying to put it towards something he was passionate about and failed at it a couple of times. So I think that makes a big difference.
I do too. And like, I think that it's like, it is what it is. Like he has the ability to try and fail at this and still attend Harvard, great for him. He also then becomes the 68th employee hired at Apple. So, there is a little bit of like right place, right time
for sure.
And wealth, is probably accumulating. I don't know what his family's background is, but again, his dad's able to give him $5,000 to.
Yeah, there's some wealth there, and they live right next door to like an important football person too. So.
Yeah. While he's at Apple, according to him, I think he says that people call him Steve Jobs Jr.
People call me that too, actually, according to me. So.
Yeah. Just Steve Jobs Jr. walking around the office. I can't imagine like. First of all, if people really called him that, like that had to have been either tongue in cheek or insulting.
But also, like, I don't know. I feel like Steve Jobs had been doing stuff for a while, I know, but I feel like the elevation of him as sort of this deity person didn't come till like later. So like, I don't know. That feels like a in retrospect thing.
It does, yeah. It feels like, oh yeah. People called me Steve Jobs Jr. when I was there. People liked it. I really don't know much about Trip Hawkins other than what I've read in these stories, so I shouldn't be like mean to him.
That's
but
funny, though.
It is very funny to say that about yourself. Anyway, he, like I said, he starts working for Apple, and then in May of 1982, with the funds he gets from selling his Apple stock options, he sets up shop to make his own game company, Amazing Software, which he's able to set up shop in Apple's offices for a bit, which I found kind of wild that they're just like, yeah, man, if you want to quit and start your own company, you can borrow some office space for a while. Why not?
That's so funny.
It's so weird how things used to work and no longer ever would.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention the name again really quickly too, because again, we talked a little bit about how it changes to Electronic Arts. They had this specific mindset going into it. And I'm going to quote from Tripp here. He says, the original name had been Amazing Software, but I wanted to recognize software as an art form and wanted to change it to soft art. And then he mentions how somebody else mentions that he's working with, that software arts is another thing. They can't really use that. And so they end up landing on electronic arts. And I just think that that's important because, again, it is very much in the mindset early on that they want this to be a artistic venture, like first and foremost. They want it to be looked at as artistry and not necessarily just like a product, which again, definite far cry from what the company becomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's really interesting too, like when you start looking at, and I have some screenshots of some of their early games in here.
Okay.
Trip Hawkins like actually spends time studying album art for like music, and you see that in their early games, like these like rock album inspired arts for like and I'll share out some of the images, but like Hard Hat Mac.
Oh, this stuff is sick. Oh, I like
it's
this
sick,
a
right?
lot.
I love it. I think it's really, really cool. It's striking. It's like these like very like you wouldn't know what the game is about when you saw this.
Yeah, but it does. But it's the same. But I think the rock album thing makes so much sense. And I feel like I've seen like computer program packaging from this era, and I've never been able to like wrap my head around exactly why they look like that. And it's like looking at music albums, because music albums, the covers can be like art pieces all their own that are just meant to just be a vibe. Like, and I think that makes so much sense. I love this one with like the grid lines and the hands coming out over this like sphere. It's like, oh, it's so fucking cool.
That would be the game Bill Budge Pinball Construction Set.
Yeah, God.
It's so funny because like you could see that as like if you got rid of Bill Budge Pinball Construction Set, that could be a Pink Floyd album cover.
Absolutely.
Like,
yes.
Hands down. Like, you know, it is really like this sort of like progressive like style, like rock, you know, style art. And I think it's like the other thing that you'll notice on all of these is that you see prominently the names of like the artists, right? Like, so
that's a good point. Yeah,
it's Bill Budge's, you know, pinball construction set.
Interesting.
Hard Hat Mac says Michael Abbott and Matthew Alexander like right underneath of it. So it is like treating this as like almost kind of like an auteur sort of thing of like these are the people making this game.
That's fascinating. And that's the thing now, the most that you'll get will be like, oh, like Ken Levine did BioShock kind of thing, but his name's not plastered all over it. Like you have to like be in the know about the making of that game to know that a lot of that was like his vision or whatever, you know?
Right.
Like that's like, yeah, you don't see that with games ever after this period. That's so interesting.
Yeah. And I will say that it's a short-lived thing for EA as well. But it is really cool that they kind of have that vision to kind of start that. And I do think, like, I don't know, there's this, like, maybe alternate universe where they stay this, like, boutique, like, you know, indie publisher where they are still working directly with these, like, artists. Like,
to be clear, like, indie, like, a lot of this stuff does still exist in the indie sphere of, like, you know, just artful presentations, making it very clear who the maker is and who the creator is and putting their names on stuff like that. That's still true in the indie space, but for like corporation owned gaming, absolutely not the case.
No.
Yeah.
No way at all. And I will say Hawkins is like, you know, even though I'm talking, there's like other people like working on this as well and working on this as a lot of the times, but he really is the driving force behind some of this stuff. And like, he's not perfect either. Like one of the things I was like reading some of his quotes and he said, then this one is like, it kind of like gets at his like artistic kind of mindset, but it like is also a little demeaning to other art forms because he says, we learned by doing, and computer simulation was the most efficient way to do this. I wanted to help the world transition from brain deadening media like broadcast television to interactive media that would connect people and help them grow.
It is very funny to have like a video game person like shooting down other forms of entertainment, like media, like video games famously not known for like not considered to be art by many, many people and not known as being particularly artful. That's very, very funny. But you know what? I do respect that he's like treating it with like the importance of it being an art form. I do think that is a thing that does kind of get lost by a lot of game designers as time goes on.
When especially like you said, like it's there in like the indie scene and stuff like that now, but like in like big publishing houses and stuff like that, like you just don't really have necessarily that mindset. Like it's not as pervasive, at least.
Yeah.
I'll also note that like, you know, there's a lot happens, you know, in the 80s. There's the video game crash. He kind of is high on himself a little bit. He says, and it's a little cheesy, but he says, I made a conscious decision to ignore Atari and focus on the next generation of technology. We had to operate like the Fremen of Dune, recycling our own saliva to live in the desert to survive. We had to rebuild the industry brick by brick over a period of years.
This fucking nerd. I'm kind of obsessed with this guy. Actually,
he kind of is cool. He kind of is cool.
Like he seems like absolutely insufferable, but like in a way I kind of like, in a kind of a fun way. Like his fucking like dude references is so stupid. I love it.
It's so funny having to recycle our own saliva.
It's so self-important, but like while he's making these like fucking nerdy references, I love it.
Yeah,
freak.
A couple of things happen sort of in these early years that I think plant seeds for things we'll see later on. So in 1983, they released Dr. J and Larry Bird Go One-on-One, which is, you know, I think very much a precursor to their focus on sports in the future and focus on sports licensing, and also just having like a spokesperson. We know who the big one that they get later on, of course, but you know, I think it is like they see that as an opportunity early on.
Makes sense.
The following year, EA ends up publishing 8 games with 5 different developers. Their first in-house published games are Will Harvey's The Immortal for the NES and Skate or Die in 1988, the latter of which we actually talked about on the pod before. Skate or Die, it was an EA title. And even though both of those do end up on the original NES, EA is mostly focused on the PC gaming in its early years, and they don't really do much console development until the Genesis and the SNES era. And even then, many of their games, they're actually more focused on the Genesis, which I'll talk about in a second, and they port a lot of games over to the Genesis when they decide to start making console games. 1988, I mentioned, that is when Skate or Die comes out. It's also a very big year for the company because that's when the very first Madden game comes out, John Madden Football.
Look at this defense. The guys aren't in there. Get in there. Get my guys in there.
Former NFL coach John Madden has lent his name to a Sega football game with 17 different teams and more than 100 plays.
I can't stop them. I can't stop this team. Touchdown! You just can't play a game where you have an offense against a defense. You ever say, what down is it? First down? Boom, I get these guys. Boom, boom. Second down, these are the things you do in second down.
Good blocking, huh? This game is geared toward a different market than Nintendo, according to the senior editor of Game Pro magazine, Mike Myers.
Right now, 35% of the market are adults, you know, men over age 18, and they want sophisticated sports games, things that are going to challenge them.
I used to tell players, if you ever get a real hard hit, the best thing you can do to a guy is laugh at it. Smacks you and you go. Most people want to cry, but you can't do that. The best reaction you can get is to laugh. That means you don't care or you like it. Neither one of those are good for the hittee. That's my game. What's yours?
The man, John Madden. Need I say more? Okay, I will. Football. He studies it, analyzes it, puts it in his game. Tough, real tough, full rosters. The all-Madden team. Need I say more? Okay, I will. Stats season long. In his head, in his voice, in his game. What do you want? Real players? You got it. High stats? You got it. Windowless passing? You got it. Madden, he's the man. You think John's got a big head about all this? Give me a break. The guy rides a bus to work. Madden NFL 95. The game. EA Sports. It's in the game.
Which they actually work very closely with John Madden on during the development. And there's a ton of articles that you can find. I'm not going to talk too much about it because that's a whole subject in and of itself. But like of them working with John Madden to the point to where like I think Trip Hawkins like ends up becoming like somewhat friends or close with Madden, which is kind of cool. Yeah. And like I mentioned, during these early years, I'm mostly releasing software for the PC. But once the console market starts to pick up, they really start looking at the Sega Genesis as like a vehicle for them to start like making games.
Okay.
And the way that they go about doing it is by so we talked about this a little bit in our console episode, and Nintendo and Sega both had like you had to like get licenses to like publish stuff on their consoles.
Right.
And it was like there was a cost to doing this, and obviously like publishers had to pay that cost. EA was like, well, this is going to be a big cost for us. They decide that instead of just like paying it. They want to go to Sega and basically say, hey, give us a deal, give us a more favorable deal. And if you don't, we're just going to make unlicensed games for the Genesis. Like, that's just what we're going to do.
All right. Wow.
Which is a wild thing to do,
yeah,
but it works.
Okay.
Yeah, like Sega acquiesces and gives them a deal, and it's mostly because I think the company has a backlog of games and has become like a little bit of a name at this time. And they start building out this like library for the Genesis to like really go toe to toe with NES at the time.
Wow.
But it is like really hotly contested within EA for them to actually start making games for consoles, because again, most of their games at this time are like PC games. They actually like lose people. Like people like quit the company when they start making games for the Sega Genesis. Hawkins says it was very contentious because many employees and developers did not like consoles or did not like action games. The goal was to stop making esoteric products for an elite customer base and go make it big time with mainstream developers. Several employees were outraged and quit, but I convinced the team that if the public chose to buy consoles like the Genesis, then to satisfy our customers, we had to make the best games possible on the platform chosen by the public, not ones our engineers wished they could afford.
I love that like the PC versus console wars was happening even back then. That's just so funny. It's never times don't change in some ways.
It really does not. And I'm going to skip over a little bit here, but like basically they start making games for the Sega. They have a pretty big push. And things start to move pretty quickly from here. Trip Hawkins actually steps down as CEO, but stays on the board, I believe in like 1990. But then he ends up leaving the company fully in 1994. And that's when Larry Probst takes over as CEO. And it's during his years that the company really starts significant expansion. They start acquiring several higher profile game development companies and bringing them into the fold. A different process than what we had just talked about, where they're working with artists as sort of an auteur. This is when they're like, you can't just have one developer making a game. You have to have a whole team sort of moving forward. And then they also start growing their licensing arm around like sports franchises. And then they find pretty massive success in like sort of the mid to late 90s. And I have to share this because there's a really funny... Knowing What We Know article that's published in Next Generation magazine.
Oh boy.
Titled, Is Your Favorite Game Company Ripping You Off?
Well.
And it begins, just wait. It begins with, why do games cost so much money? When you hand over $50 for the latest title, are you getting a fair deal or are you getting ripped off? And it ends with this passage. Some of the world's largest media companies were tempted into the market partly by high retail prices charged for software. Many are now exiting the industry in a big hurry after finding that despite price tags of $45 and $75, it's actually very difficult to make money from games. Conversely, the only company to regularly make good money from computer and video games over the past 5 years is Electronic Arts, a publisher with a critical track record second to none and possibly the last company any consumer would accuse of ripping people off.
Whoa. What year was this?
This was 97.
Wow. I mean, I guess they're speaking to EA games just being considered to be good. Is that what all they're referring to?
Yeah, and so I wanted to highlight that because like again, like their reputation grows and like people look at them as like a publisher of good games.
Sure.
And they're making money doing it. Like that's the other thing too, is like this whole article is kind of like, it's a really fascinating article. It's kind of like debating like, are you getting ripped off for games? Like, are companies just trying to like get your money from you? And like they use EA as an example of like, this is the only company that's actually making money, and it's because they're making good games.
Right, which I mean, the logic there is sound. Like if you make good things, people are going to buy them and you'll make money off of them. But that is just, that's so fascinating. That's so fascinating.
How far we freaking come, like from that point to
how far
this
they've
one.
fallen, rather.
Yeah. I'm gonna close the chapter really quickly on EA because
please.
And it's gonna be premature because like there's a lot more that we could talk about with EA. Like I want to stress that. Like I'm only really covering things that I think are interesting to this narrative that we've kind of built, which is like EA has fallen from grace. A couple other events that I would highlight is that in 2004, they make a substantial donation to fund game development courses at USC's Interactive Media Division, which is cool.
Yeah.
In 2005, they signed an exclusive agreement with the NFL and the NFLPA, which makes Madden the only exclusively licensed NFL title for 5 years. And this comes after 2K, which is published by Take-Two, starts eating into their profits. So Take-Two, who makes the 2K games, responds by saying, "We believe that the decision of the National Football League and Players Inc. to grant an exclusive license for video games to do a tremendous disservice to the consumers and sports fans whose funds ultimately support the NFL by limiting their choices, curbing creativity, and almost certainly leading to higher game prices." They also signed a 15-year deal with ESPN and a 6-year deal with Collegiate Licensing Company, the one that gets them the NCAA license. And so, yeah, like they lock in the NFL and NCAA after like these other cheaper games start coming out.
Wow.
And they're like, we're just going to go to them. And I shouldn't say they go to them. Like NFL is like looking for bids and they're like, we'll give them the highest bid we possibly can and just lock down like the name NFL.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hey, so one thing I didn't actually mention when we were recording the actual episode that I think most people know, but in case you don't, I was talking about sort of the 2K and then the EA, basically getting exclusive rights through the NFL. That lasted like until, basically forever, right? Like EA basically got the rights for the NFL and kept extending them. I did want to note that's also was extended last year as well. So October of 22nd, 2025 was when they announced that EA and the NFL had continued their partnership, I believe through 2030, according to the press release that they had at the time. It just said that they announced an expanded multi-year exclusive agreement to grow American football worldwide. Under the partnership, EA Sports and the NFL will continue to drive innovation and expansion of the celebrated Madden NFL franchise, which will continue to as the exclusive action simulation game for NFL football. So, they basically got the rights, didn't let them go, and haven't let them go since. So, and most reports I've seen, I didn't see in the actual press release where they said this, but I believe that it was announced that it was through at least 2030. If you're signing it in 2025, it would at least be 5 years, most likely. So, anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I didn't finish that train of thought in the episode. But it's not just like, oh, they locked down, the rights, and then later on, other other games were able to come in and make NFL games. No, it was like they locked down the rights and they've been locked down pretty much since, and they continue to lock them down. So essentially, and if you're curious as to why that's bad, and you don't play, Madden games, which I haven't in a very long time. One of the reasons is that most people will point to the declining quality. And part of that is because there's not really much by way of, competition, right? Like if you're the only title and you just have to put out a new title every year and update the roster. And, not to say that that's the only changes that they make, but like there's no actual real competition to push them to make better titles. And, not really good for anyone, just like what 2K said in their statement when they originally lost the ability to make NFL games. I should also note that a lot of people point to that final 2K game, the NFL 2K5, as like one of like an extremely successful game. EA, I think, really saw, and especially because it was much cheaper too. It sold for like $20. Like that's something we didn't talk about when we actually recorded the episode, but like they were able to make a cheaper, better game, or at least a lot of people would call it a better game. And so EA's response was to say, well, let's make sure that nobody else can do it better than us for cheaper. And they did, and they have, and they continue to do that. So anyway, just wanted to specifically call out that their licensing has extended through, 2030 at least, I believe. And that's something we talk a lot about on this podcast too, because the Simpsons licensing, once EA got it, they just kind of like held on to it, right? Like they just, they made the one really good game, the Simpsons game, couple of mobile games, and then tapped out, and that was really it. Again, we've talked about licensing and stuff like that in the past. I just thought this was an important piece to kind of mention, and why like this type of like exclusivity is bad, because you get in situations where if a company just has enough money, they can just say, well, nobody else is going to make a football game, like another football game. But anyway, just wanted to call attention to that and mention that piece, the 2030 piece. Bye. See ya later. And then finally in 2006, they announced a partnership with Nokia to become the exclusive supplier for mobile Nokia games.
Oh, so that Fantastic Four game I probably played was probably an EA game in that case.
If you had a Nokia.
I'm pretty sure I had a Nokia at the time. That's really interesting. I didn't realize it was exclusively EA. That's wild.
Yeah. But like you can kind of like take the jump from here to where we get to, right? Of like exclusivity, locking other, parties out of making games, really just going forward with like, anti-consumer practices, like the licensing thing, like getting rid of choice for consumers. And it's kind of sad. Like, honestly, like I felt a little bummed when I was reading about like the early history of EA.
Yeah.
And just being like, oh, look at these dudes who are like making games or like publishing games with like Rockstar kind of like, jewel cases.
Yeah, and being like kind of big nerds about it too, like clearly just sort of passionate. Like I it's not speaking to who they were personally or whatever. And like I don't know Trip Hawkins as a person. Maybe he was a nightmare person to be around with terrible views. Who knows? But as an artist, you can definitely see that there is passion there, and that alone feels very different from what EA especially is known for. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. For sure. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to mention about EA. Any final thoughts on this grotesque company before we move on?
It makes me feel better about like when I knock on their games. But also like I do think it's useful context for this podcast because of how EA obviously was so instrumental to the last few Simpsons games that we've covered. And I think the weird thing with EA is that because they employ so many people and have bought out so many pre-existing gaming companies and stuff like that, it's not that there aren't good games that are made under the EA company. Like there are still games that are made, and like the games that we played, the Simpsons games we played, we generally liked that EA had made. Like I feel like liked more of the EA stuff than didn't, because there was a lot of money involved to make them good. But it's like, what was the cost of the health of the employees making these games? And I feel like any of the complaints we would have about those latter day games for The Simpsons were things where it's like, if they had more time and money, they probably could have made this better, and they definitely could have improved it. And it's like, under a better company with better practices that were willing to make games the best they could be, the games that we did play probably could have been better, even if we liked them. Like the Simpsons game itself, I do still genuinely really like that game, but there's still so many things I see in that game where it's just like, if a little more time was spent on this, and a little more detail was put into this, and a little more effort was put into this, a little more time and money specifically was put into this, it would have been perfect. It would have been so much better and probably more successful. And everything I think you can kind of blame on EA forcing these constraints that didn't need to be there because they're the biggest fucking company that have all the money in the world to make these games great.
Yeah, no. And I think I agree with that. And I would even extend that to, and we'll talk about our thoughts about, the mobile games, but I would extend that to the mobile games that we played for this too. Like, I don't think that they're like, bad,
but like if you have all the resources in the world for these, and you're like the exclusive Nokia game publisher, like you've got all the power and resources in the world to make the best mobile games in the world. There's no reason to half-ass these things, and they're so clearly half-assed. So like, yeah. It
really is sad. And I think part of the reason too is like, because you and I, like, obviously early EA is like before our time, but I think we were, we were gaining consciousness, right? Like as like they're kind of being lauded as like this company that's a little bit, more of a the company that they mentioned in that like 97 magazine article of like, this is a company that is like making great games and they're making money, to like the early 2000s where that's when it like really starts kind of like gobbling up other companies. Like we've kind of have lived through the life cycle of this company, and now we're at the point where like fucking the Saudi Arabian government and Jared Kushner is buying it. Like, you know, and it's just like, I don't know. It's weird. It's just weird. Like I don't have anything intelligent to say about it other than just like.
I mean, I think that speaks to a lot of corporate media and corporate art now, where it's just like stuff that was very meaningful to you at it, like, you know, as you were growing up. Like I think a lot of people feel that with Disney, honestly, and many properties that Disney owns now, where it's like this was something that like growing up it was so magical and important to like my experience with movies and entertainment and stuff like that, and now it just all feels just really gross right now, you know. Like I don't feel I understand when people are sort of like, I don't want to see the fucking latest Star Wars movie. It all feels gross to me. And because it all feels very corporate, even if the art itself being made is good, it's never doesn't feel gross. And there's something uniquely unfortunate to that, I think, of like growing up and seeing the downfall of something that you kind of loved, that meant a lot to you, and having to grapple with like, it is ultimately owned by a fucking company. Like, and it's never not going to feel weird, you know? Yeah.
I mean, I think that's also just like, it's funny. Like technically we have one more actual like game in the timeline after this game. And it kind of also just feels like this franchise too, like a little bit, you know, The Simpsons, and the Simpsons games specifically. But well, let's jump really quickly into the nearest episodes. We won't spend too much time on this because they're, you know, they're close by episodes that don't really tie that much into the actual game itself. Although I will say My Pods and Boomsticks does have a little bit of an interesting tie-in because there's a lot of Apple discussion, or rather Mapple.
And I guess
what they talk about.
2008 is literally just a year after like iPhones. I know this, it's more about iPods, but like, but Apple products becoming kind of like the thing, you know, that sort of representative of technology at the time. That is really interesting.
Mom, Dad, our mall got a Maple store. It's so sterile. My pods, my phones, a Brainiac bar.
Attention Maple Universe. Prepare for a live announcement from Maple founder and Chief Imaginative Officer, Steve Mobs.
Steve Mobs!
He's a genius! He's like a god who knows what we want!
Greetings, it is I, your insanely great leader, Steve Mobs. I'm speaking to you from Maple headquarters deep below the sea with an announcement that will completely change the way you look at everything.
Ooh.
And that announcement is...
You're all losers! Huh? You think you're cool because you buy a $500 phone with a picture of a fruit on it? Well, guess what? They cost $8 to make, and I pee on every one. I have made a fortune off you chumps, and I've invested it all in Microsoft. Now my boyfriend Bill Gates and I kiss each other on a pile of your money.
Traitor! Your heart is blacker than your turtleneck!
Who dares question the boss we fired 10 years ago and then brought back?
So the two nearest episodes are My Pods and Boomsticks, which is season 20. Wow, season 20, episode 7, which aired on November 30th, 2008. And then The Burns and the Bees, season 20, episode 8, which aired on December 7th, 2008. And I want to actually preface too, this is the nearest episode to the Itchy and Scratchy Land game. The other game, Minutes to Meltdown, actually comes out a year prior. It's closer to just when the movie comes out. It's like the same month as the movie. So we're going to talk about the movie. We don't need to do the episodes near it. But yes, My Pods and Boomsticks, and then The Burns and the Bees. Two very interesting and very different episodes. So I'll just give a quick rundown of My Pods and Boomsticks. The A plot is that a new family moves into town. They're from Jordan, and Homer becomes aggressively bigoted towards them. And it kind of shines a light on Islamophobia to the point where Homer is like accusing them of being terrorists and spying on them. And I had not seen this episode before going into recording, and I was nervous. I'll be honest.
Sure, of course. Yeah. Right. And we just got out of probably the lowest point, I think, of Simpsons in terms of its sort of like the punching down sort of humor that it had for a period of time, unfortunately. So, you know, like watching like a season 15 or 16 episode and then hearing like, and they do an episode about Islamophobia. It's like, oh no, red flag.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was actually pretty surprised with this episode. So this one actually guest stars Shorey Aghdashloo, who I was on, I think 24 at the time.
That would make sense. Sure.
Yeah. And, So she guest stars as kind of the mother to this family that moves in, and Bart has a friend from the family named Bashir. And like I said, it just kind of spirals into Homer being a bigot and Islamophobic. But that's not what the episode is basically sort of like countering that. Like that is the concept behind the episode of like Homer is sort of playing the bumbling idiot in that moment, and it is trying to showcase like this is, you know, you should not be Islamophobic. Like, it's not promoting Islamophobia.
Oh, my God. What can I do?
Well, if you want to stop Bashir and his war on American principles, you could discriminate against his family in employment and housing.
Yeah, it's pretty patriotic, but I got a better idea. Invite him over.
Little dinner, a little dessert, and then you Jack Bauer them into giving you all their secrets.
I guess I have no choice.
Homie, it's very open-minded of you to have Bart's Muslim friend's Muslim family over.
Here's the plan, Marge. You keep 'em talking. I'll be listening and quietly judging.
The doorbell will tell you when they're here. So, how did you two meet?
We met while studying at Jordan University of Science and Technology.
Oh, interesting. Why, just the other day I was reading that science is used to make bombs.
Now bait the trap.
Why don't I get us dessert? I made us a little cake. Care to cut? Watch this, Lenny.
Not now. I got soap in my eyes.
No, thank you.
What's the matter? Don't like the taste of freedom?
Dad, these people are my friends. Don't fear them just because they have a different religion, a different culture, and their last name is Bin Laden.
Young man, you do not respect us by disrespecting your father.
I like the way you Italians think. Shut up, old man.
I think it is time for us to go. Mm-hmm.
That's it. Ruin a perfect evening.
You're teaching Bart a terrible lesson of intolerance.
I'm sorry. It's just so fun and easy to judge people based on religion.
Well, I want you to go over to their house and apologize.
But we're the more powerful country for a few more years.
I wanted to call out that it actually, the Center on American Islamic Relations actually sends a letter of commendation to Matt Groening praising the episode after it airs. And the letter actually says that it brought to light how Americans can work toward mutual respect and inclusion by getting to know their neighbor. And then also, the episode also builds on the values that have made America the great nation it is, a nation in which citizenship is about finding common ground and building a better society. American Muslims have been doing just that by making daily contributions to our society that often go unrecognized. I just thought that was kind of neat. I thought that was pretty cool.
Neat. Yeah, no, that's really cool. Also, I have to mention it because we just talked about a lot about EA, because Aghdashloo does like a lot. She's been in so much stuff. She's so prolific, but she also does a lot of video game voices, and she is the Quarian Admiral in Mass Effect that like is in 2 and 3, and the one that is on the Normandy through like a big section.
Holy
of 3, and she's really good in it. Like that's like 0.1% of the things that she's done. She's so prolific.
She's also in
especially
Assassin's
in
Creed, and
like she has a really great voice, like very distinct voice. She's so good.
And she's great in this episode, and in fact, she also gets honored by so Shorey, Al Jean, and Mark Wilmore, who wrote the episode, are all honored by the Muslim Public Affairs Council during their 18th annual media awards as well. So like
that's cool.
It's really cool, and this is also a really well received episode too, just in that period of time. Which, like, you know, this is not a period of time when episodes are always well received. Including the next one, where this episode is kind of fun and really interesting. The next episode is not at all. The plot of it is so it's the Burns and the Bees. And I should mention, so in my pods, the other thing is like the B plot is Lisa gets obsessed with, she gets a my pod, she gets obsessed with Apple. And it's honestly, the B plot is very weak in that episode. It's the weakest part of the episode. Sure. I think it's just an excuse for them to make puns about like Apple.
Right. Yeah.
Who cares? It doesn't say anything interesting at all, other than like she downloads a bunch of songs and gets charged like $1,000, which I think, you know,
that was such a specific point in time. That's so funny.
It's very dated. But the Burns and the Bees, however, is so this episode guest stars Mark Cuban, Jeff Bezos, Marv Albert, and also features the likeness of like several other billionaires, including Mark Zuckerberg.
Great.
Who's the T-Mobile guy, Virgin guy.
Oh my God, what is his name? It's going to drive me crazy.
Richard Branson?
I think it's Branson. Richard Branson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ted Turner, like it shows a bunch of billionaires, but the fact that like Jeff Bezos is actually voiced in this, and I didn't know about that, is crazy to me. Like, it's so wild.
And the call from the SEC was coming from inside their own brokerage house.
Jeff Bezos wet his pants.
I did not. That was apple juice from before.
Yeah, this is the era for that, unfortunately. I mean, they don't get Elon Musk in this one because they were saving him for his own episode a few years later.
Yeah. I mean, they really have a murderer's row, right, of billionaires that appear on The Simpsons. But honestly, the plot of this one, I don't even fucking remember. Like, it was like Burns, I think, goes to billionaire camp and ends up winning a basketball team in a poker game. And
sure, whatever.
It's a Burns-centric episode that's really uninteresting because it's just like
frustrating because if you have Burns, part of what makes Burns a great character is that like just the really broad satire of like the hyper rich, the extreme rich people that exist. And it does feel like it kind of undercuts that satire by having actual billionaires playing themselves in The Simpsons, probably getting paid for it. And getting to just like maybe, I don't know. They may or may not have gotten paid for it. I actually don't know. But probably. And I don't know. And just like, even if they're like poking fun at themselves, it's still like kind of being like, they're the cool billionaires, right? Don't you love them? Like, people to this day still are like weird about like Mark Cuban's one of the good billionaires. And it's like, I don't know about that, guys.
No.
Yeah. So it just undercuts it. It kind of takes the juice out of like what makes Burns an interesting character to have on The Simpsons anyway.
Yes. Yeah. And I will say too, Mark Cuban just annoys the hell out of me in this episode. Like I think he does a great job like voice acting himself, but it's in the era where like Mark Cuban was like getting more known as like, oh, he's the outspoken, wild, fun owner of the Dallas Mavericks, right? Like it was just like that era. And like, I don't know, especially where we're at today, it's just kind of like, I don't know. And then the only other thing I will note is that Jeff Bezos pisses his pants in this episode, which is kind of cool.
That's nice.
But yeah, this episode's really boring. The B plot is that like the B plot is literally a B plot. It's about bees. Yeah. And it's about the natural hive collapse or whatever that was happening or that has been happening.
Right.
But even at that, it doesn't really feel like it is saying that much like about like that. It's just kind of like a plot device in this episode. So
sure.
I don't know. Boring episode. I definitely think My Pods is better. It's not a perfect episode, but it's better than this.
Sure. Sure.
So cool. Well, let's jump into these games, which are honestly like kind of fascinating little relics, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to check them out. But again, the games that we're talking about are The Simpsons Minutes to Meltdown, which we mentioned, released July 1, 2007, and The Simpsons Itchy and Scratchy Land, which released December 1, 2008. These were developed by G5 Mobile and a subsidiary of G5 Entertainment AB.
Okay.
Which I think it's the same company, but like it's essentially it is a Russian mobile game developer, which still exists today. G5 Software still exists today, which makes what I think are mobile, I would say are mobile slop games.
Sure. Yeah.
Literally any game that you see advertised, like it's that, like point and find games with like AI generated images, like Emperor games, Mahjong, stuff like that.
Yeah, some of them, what's funny is that like probably now they're AI generated. I think for a long time they weren't, and all just looked like that. They just were bad because it looked like that for a long time. My favorite thing on this sort of type of game, I don't know if this company makes these specifically, but obviously they're sort of similar to them, but just the ads for these games that I'm obsessed with all of them. I mean, like Merge Mansion was like one of the good ones because they actually had like a narrative, and they did the Kathy Bates commercial and stuff like that. They at least were leaning into it, and I don't think the game is like that bad from my understanding. I've never played it though, but like at least they made an art form out of their ads. My favorite ones are just like that one is top tier. That's like a god tier one, but all the other ones that are just like always just what seems like just random, probably created by an algorithm, are now AI generated, just like ads that just combine random elements of like the pregnant woman like watches her husband kiss another woman, and then suddenly she has an infant baby and she's walking through the snow to a broken down house that's breaking, and you have to fix the house up, and it's just a home decor game. Or the one with like the dirtiest woman in the world that's like covered in like never ending poop or mud or whatever, and has like the longest hair in the world, and it just says help her, and it's like a makeover game. But then the actual game is like a card game. I'm obsessed with these things. They're so fucking fascinating. I've never had played, and never will play a single one of them, but I will watch every single ad they ever make for these. They're so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Except for when they're the annoying ones that just like pop up on like an app or something like that. But yeah. Also, like, have you ever been on the Merge Mansion wiki? Did you know there was a Merge Mansion wiki?
Absolutely. The lore of this game is deep.
I mean, it's a massive wiki. Like these games, that game is not kidding around.
No, that one's like legit. Again, I've never played it, and I think it's funny for the bit to never play it. But like, as far as I know, it is genuinely a narrative to that game. And the ads are like representative of them. He is alive. It's so fucking good. Oh, it's so good.
And you're right. I don't know for certain if like the games that this company makes are using AI generated images.
They all have that look to them that these, like, you know it when you see it, of like these like super shiny, like somewhat realistic but also not realistic cartoonified sort of things. The only reason I don't think that's a lot of them are AI generated is because they've been around for like, they've looked like that for a long time. I'm sure by this point they are, but like that style has been the style for the longest time. And it's usually is always for AI slop game, or not AI, for mobile slop games.
Mobile slop games. Yeah. I will just send you, because like this is like, I'm just gonna send you a screenshot of this one. This is what I was seeing that I was like, and this is like a newer-ish one.
Probably is AI at that point.
That I'm like, I think that probably has to, I mean, I could be wrong. Like it's just like looking at, it's just like,
this is definitely AI. What the fuck is this? What am I even looking at?
It's just like you have to like find stuff in the pictures.
So much happening. Oh my god.
Yeah. It's just like pictures where it's like an endless things are happening. But I won't call out like what game we're looking at specifically, because I don't want to like insult anyone. If somehow this is
who cares,
just someone's art, I don't want to insult them. But it doesn't. I don't think it is.
These games, by their design, just like don't look very aesthetically pleasing. They always kind of look the same.
Definitely not to me. If you're into that, like, look, fine.
Sure.
But anyway, that's what they do now. There's nothing of note for me to call out. Like, I truly like I can't find anything they did that was like worth mentioning.
That's why it's like mobile slop, is because there's just so many of these things and they're all kind of the same. And I'm sure you can find plenty of people who like enjoy playing them because they are usually just like match games or a Candy Crush knockoff or a card game, or like at best maybe there are like some sort of makeover game or puzzle game or home decor game that just don't function at all the same, as the ads do. And the thing that maybe makes them evil is if they are full of microtransactions, which they certainly are.
Sure. Yes.
But I don't know. Like, I don't think it's inherently evil to play games like that. It's just not for me at all.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think, and also like some of these are like, almost like they kind of like the hidden images games like almost feel like a really boiled down version of like a point and click adventure game.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And that's fine. Like that's not my style of gameplay, but like if you find one that's good, sure.
Right. And like, I don't really play mobile games, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more in depth when like we talk about Tapped Out in another episode, like I don't really play mobile games in general, but for a lot of people that is the only gaming they do, are games on their phone specifically. Yeah. So,
and again, absolutely nothing wrong with that. I would not begrudge that at all. It's just these ones are, a lot of the same. But anyway, for the games themselves, so Minutes to Meltdown, I have to just talk about like the fact that like neither of these get like very much like advertisement because like, I mean, they're mobile games. So why would you advertise them? But 4 Minutes to Meltdown, I did think this was really interesting. Much of the actual advertising I could find was tied to an AT&T promoted guide to mobile gaming that was actual literal, like this was an advertisement. Like when you find this in the magazines, it's the exact same. It's literal ads. And it says special advertisement section, but it's that style of advertisement that if you don't really read magazines, you're not that familiar with, but it was like a type of advertisement where you're trying to make it look like this is part of the magazine, right? Like it is like articles, quote, and like guides and things and features and things like that. This advertisement was 30 pages long, and it's all about various different mobile games at the time. And I found it in the first issue of PlayStation, the official mag in 2007, PC Gamer Volume 14, issue 169, and official Xbox Magazine issue number 78. And like literally, like it looks like when you're looking at this, it's part of the magazine. It gives you a how to download games guide, which is so funny to me.
Yeah.
It gave you a top 5 places to game.
Hold on. The commute, waiting for friends, vacations. Why would you go on vacation and play on your phone? At the gym. What are you talking about? You're at the gym. You should be working out. And then at school.
The funniest thing about this particular section of this ad, I can't stress that enough. This is an ad, is that it doesn't know who it's advertising to. Like the commute.
Oh, that's so true. Is for adults, and then also at school. Yeah,
at school. And then here's the other part: vacations. It says if you happen to be stuck with your parents on an annual family reunion, wireless games will keep you company. So it's like who are you
so
talking
funny.
to?
This one child who also has a date. No, you know what? It's talking to Peter Parker because he was working for the Daily Bugle while he was in high school. So so he's going to work, but also at school. Like it's that kind of. They're talking about these freak kids who like have like the busiest lives in the world.
Yeah,
who are, like working out and, but also hate their parents and are still going to school while also having a job. Yeah.
But it's also so funny to me too because like I think that's kind of indicative of like the marketing, but also like they didn't know who mobile games were for at the time.
Absolutely,
like, you know what I mean?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
that totally makes a lot of sense.
The next page or the next section I highlighted is Must Play TV, and this is a whole interview with the creator of the Lost and Heroes mobile game.
I'm sure those were stupendous and wonderfully good and just fantastic adaptations of those television shows.
It's so funny to me. It says Lost and Heroes have captivated television viewers across the nation.
Sure.
Now that they're being adapted for your cell phone, we spoke with GameLoft vice president to uncover juicy details behind these two highly anticipated mobile games.
Yeah,
highly anticipated.
Mhm.
Highly anticipated.
You know what I was doing at the time was watching the shit out of Lost and Heroes, two of my favorite shows of that year at the time. You know what I wasn't doing? Anticipating the Lost and Heroes mobile game on my phone that I don't think I knew existed until this very moment.
Nope. But Menace to Meltdown does get featured in this advertisement, this very long advertisement. It says it's just it's a sidebar, and it's EA Mobile's The Simpsons Minutes to Meltdown. America's favorite animated family needs your help to save Springfield from a nuclear meltdown. With your help, Homer fumbles through the town to the power plant while avoiding hazards like burning tires and giant sinkholes. Plenty of supporting Simpsons cast members like Barney, Mr. Burns, and Apu join the fray to help your cause, while a few mischievous characters like Krusty the Clown and Officer Lou try to prevent you from saving the day.
Wait, I love that they call out Officer Lou.
Yeah.
They name these famous characters everyone knows, like Barney, Mr. Burns, Apu, Krusty the Clown, and Officer Lou. They don't even mention Chief Wiggum. Why Officer Lou?
Right. Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing is just like a really fascinating relic.
It's
and
really funny.
If y'all don't know at this point in time, I love shit like this. When I find stuff like this, I'm like, this is wild. Like,
I mean, because it's just like, again, this was such a particular point in time that was very brief, I think. Because, just the way that we used our phones changed like immediately after this and radically and rapidly. Yeah. So like the idea that they were just like, how do we talk about games on your phone in general? We've got to explain that you can play this while you're on the bus. Like, it's so funny.
It's so funny to me. The game also does get a brief mention in GamePro, just in like a mobile section that I think is pretty short-lived. And then there's like a video that I think was not like a commercial for the game, but it was like online advertisement, like video. But I couldn't find like anything else as far as like advertising was concerned for this. Not to say it didn't exist, but just eluded me this time around. And then for Itchy and Scratchy Land, the game was even further less promoted. It comes out a year later, but it does get a featured page on EA's official website where it showed you could pick up the game for as low as $2.99, which I'd buy it for $2.99. I'll be honest.
I guess so.
But that was like literally about it. It does get reviewed by, both of them get reviewed by a couple of different outlets. Pocket Gamer gives the first game 2 out of 5 stars and calls it a wanton waste of a great license. The main complaint being a lack of depth, replay value, and length. IGN also reviews it, and they actually give it a more positive review. They gave it a 6 out of 10, noting that the length is really what drove the review down, saying that the game is just too damn short to even be considered something of value. But the reviewer actually did really like the game from the review that I read. It was really just that it was like super short, like very, very short game.
I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I don't want to be like mobile games aren't worth reviewing or whatever, but I do think that they're not, I said this earlier, but like they're not being made for the same audience in mind. They're not being made even like the way that mobile games today are. Like these are being made to be something that you're just doing while you're out when you have a tiny bit of downtime. So like a game that takes 30 minutes to play that's like doesn't really have much to it is kind of, I don't know, like kind of what you expect from these types of games. Not saying that it couldn't be better, but like I think they're just kind of operating on like, they're operating on very like real limitations for what you can even play on, your small phone at the time. And like, why would you put a lot of effort into making something really elaborate if you know that most people aren't going to play more than 30 minutes of it anyway, probably,
It's also a cost analysis thing too, right? Like if this game is selling for like $3,
right?
How much money are you gonna actually make off of like selling copies of this game?
Exactly.
Like it also the market is very narrow, and you're not making a ton of money off of it to begin with.
Yeah,
so.
like I know obviously we're being very, I think, correctly critical of like EA cutting corners and stuff like that, like in general, but I think for something like this, it's like I do have a lot of space for like it being kind of the bare minimum, because like for one, they didn't know, like this is still relatively new-ish of like what people are willing to do and pay for, especially with a license type thing. So like, I don't know. I don't really blame them for just doing something kind of basic and not very long,
Yeah, I think that where I would fault them is the decision to make it a mobile game, like as opposed to like, just straight up making a DS or a PSP game, which they did ports of like the Simpsons game to both of those. But if they were going to make like a new game, and actually put investment behind it, I think I would fault them for not doing that. But
then that's just a totally different thing, because then now you're making a real game,
Right. But anyway. Let's jump into these. Let's start with Minutes to Meltdown. What did you think of it?
I don't have much to say about it. It wasn't. I think the weirdest thing about Minutes to Meltdown is that it's very quiet. There's no music, which again, you're expecting people to just be playing these out and about, so you don't necessarily like need much sound to it, because a lot of times people are probably playing it with the volume down if they're in public anyway. I mean, I guess nowadays everyone just has their phone full volume for everything all the time, but at the time people would put your phone on silent if you're in public. But that part was weird, so I did like start to doze off at one point while I was playing it on my computer on my laptop because it was just so quiet. It was just like it's not very fast paced. But I don't know. It was fine. I think it's a really chill game. I do think it's a little bit, there's not zero difficulty. And I think this is more playing it on a keyboard on a computer, I think is a little bit more challenging than if you were just using your buttons on a phone. Cause I did have some trouble just like maneuvering and just like jumping over potholes sometimes. And I did die a few times and got a little frustrated of like, now I have to start from the beginning. It's only 30 minutes, but I don't want to start over from the beginning.
Yeah.
So like that gets annoying. But again, if this was a game that I just had on my phone and the only game I had on my phone and I'm just playing it for a few minutes at a time while I'm waiting for the bus or something, like that's not a problem. I am probably going to be replaying it over and over again anyway, if I don't have anything else to do to kill time. So again, I have space for that. But yeah, I don't know. It was fine. There's, again, not much to it. You just run around as Homer and are just avoiding people that are trying to kill you while getting through obstacles and following Spider Pig around. And that's really it.
It really, the people who are helping you and the people who are trying to kill you, like, make zero sense in any of these games. No, it's
absolutely not. I don't understand.
Nothing makes sense. I don't understand why, if there's a meltdown that's about to happen, Krusty is going to be trying to stop you by throwing pies at you.
I think the logic, big asterisks on the logic here, but I think the logic of it is that they're riffing on the Simpsons movie where the whole town was mad at Homer for the pig slop incident, which I think maybe they were loosely having this take place during that period. That's why the town is in shambles, is because they're either under the dome or the dome thing is about to happen or whatever. But everyone's mad at Homer for the pig slop stuff. And the whole town is after him, and the whole town is like kind of post-apocalyptic in a weird way because of that.
And that's such an interesting, I didn't even think about that. And that makes so much sense. I guess I wonder why they didn't just like, I guess it's hard to like do the plot of the movie.
They could have had one little piece of art. I mean, I guess they wanted to just avoid getting too in depth and explaining the dome and shit.
Yeah.
But they still don't explain enough. I think they could have made the connection to the movie. The only reason I was just like, yeah, it comes out at the time of the movie and the pig is there. And the pig is only an important character in the movie. So like, that's how I made that connection.
Yes.
But I do think one more thing to make it clear that like, we're kind of riffing on the Simpsons movie, like would have been fun. There's no reason they could have done that.
I think the game kind of looks good. Actually,
I think that's cool. Yeah, sure.
I think both of these games, like the isometric style, I kind of really like, and I kind of would love like a full, actual, playable, fun game in that style. Because I think it actually works kind of well for the Simpsons.
I think it does. Yeah, I agree with you.
I also love some of the character models in both of these games. I'll save it for Itchy and Scratchy. I think there's more there, but like, yeah, in this one, it's like, I think the biggest thing with this game is it's like, what do you like, if you I get like if you only paid a couple bucks for it, like who cares? But like after you beat it, there's zero incentive to play it ever again.
But I wonder if that was a problem with a lot of mobile games.
Sure.
At the time, though, because like it was just like they're not thinking of New Game Plus for your Nokia game.
They're also, I mean, I will note with the sound stuff, and I don't know for certain, but I think part of it might be the emulation or like the ROM.
Maybe I was looking at videos of it. And no videos had sound either, but I guess if but they might be playing on the same emulator. I don't know.
The only reason I'll note that is that I know that when you talk to the cat, or when you like use the action button on the cat, it makes the pig sound.
So maybe there's just a glitch there.
I don't know if it's a glitch in the ROM or if that's actually in the actual game. That's really funny.
Yeah.
If they just screwed that up and like didn't fix it.
Yeah. Because there are sounds in the game that are appropriate and that makes sense. And like sound bites of Homer talking sometimes. It's just like inconsistent. And again, no background music whatsoever, which is strange.
Nope. But yeah, I think that's enough for that one. There's really not anything else. That it's really just 3 levels. You get to the end, you turn off the power plant, or you turn off the valve, and you're done.
Homer's like, ooh, bacon, and then really loud end title music for a second, and then it circles back to the beginning.
Yep.
Oh, bacon.
Yep, that's it.
Yep.
But Itchy and Scratchy Land.
Mm-hmm. This was an odd surprise.
Yes, I will say that too. I think the thing that like struck me about this game was how much it gets right.
Yes.
But also some of the stuff that it gets wrong too.
This game is an adaptation of the Itchy and Scratchy Land episode from season 6. Which, this game came out in 2008, right? So it's like over an episode that's over a decade old. However, I do think this is a clever thing that I feel like other Simpsons games could have done and still could do, because The Simpsons, because of its place in pop culture and its longevity, it does have just these iconic episodes that even though they aired 10, 20, 30 years ago, people still remember them and have probably rewatched them recently, or at least remember the basic broad strokes or iconography from it. And so the idea of being like, this episode has nothing to do with 2008, but people fucking remember the Itchy and Scratchy Land episode where they go to their Disney World Universal Studios parody, and and it's also a Westworld parody, and Itchy and Scratchy robots attack them, and the characters are all wearing different outfits. People remember that shit.
Yeah.
And so like it is really clever to just be like, let's just pick an episode people remember that we can make a video game out of, that they never made a video game out of, that they easily could have back in the day. It's like surprising that there wasn't already an Itchy and Scratchy Land episode or a game on consoles proper, so we can just do it, and they do it. And I commend them a lot for that. I think it's a brilliant idea.
100%. And also, like you mentioned, the different outfits piece. Like,
yeah, for sure.
That carries through in the game. Like there's a really, and I have to imagine, and the credits for this game are like very hard to even find, but I have to imagine that was given to this company, like specifically, like if they're doing Itchy and Scratchy Land, you're gonna have them in this outfit, you're gonna have them looking this way, and like it carries through. Like it's not even just like in the little teeny tiny cutscenes.
Right.
Homer in the whole game is wearing his like green jacket, and
the detail of like it, like in the episode, Marge has a sweater over a polo, but sometimes takes that sweater off and is just wearing the polo. The game sometimes has her in her sweater, sometimes has her in her polo, and she's the only one who has a variation in her outfit because she was the only one in that episode that had a variation in her outfit. Like weird attention to detail, but I love it.
It's extremely weird and unnecessary. Like,
Yeah.
I again, like, why they decided to be this detailed with it, I don't know,
I
but
think
it's
it was
really
just,
cool.
The people who made it probably just watched the episode and really loved the episode, so it's just like they just make it the episode, you know?
Yeah, that too. So there are specific levels in this game. You kind of start out in a hub world, which is Itchy and Scratchy Land, and then you move into Explosion Land, Unnecessary Surgery Land, Torture Land, Toxic Gas Land, and then the end game, which is like back in the hub world.
Yeah.
So
one thing I will criticize this game for, once you're in Itchy and Scratchy Land, they get all that right, because I think all of those lands are the ones that are in the map in Itchy and Scratchy Land, right?
I think so,
Searing
yeah.
Gas Pain Land, Unnecessary Surgery Land, Explosion Land, and Torture Land. Those are the ones in this game. Is that right?
yes,
And
I think they call it Toxic Gas Land, but they might have called it Searing Gas Land. I might have just got that wrong.
Yeah, I was reading off of the actual map of it, but they call it Searing Gas Pain Land in the game. That's correct.
Oh, they do? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
They
cool,
get
cool.
that right. And the other ones are Torture Land and Explosion Land, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so they get all of the lands of Itchy and Scratchy Land completely correct. The only thing that really, really, really bothered me is the lead up to Itchy and Scratchy Land. This opening little, not cutscenes necessarily, but like the little comic book panels. There's an iconic joke from that episode where Lisa runs in with Bart like his body on a wagon saying, "Mom, Dad, Bart's dead." And Bart says, "That's right, dead serious about going to Itchy and Scratchy Land." They don't include that in this game at all. I don't understand. Like, that would have been easy to put in a two frame panel comic in their little opening sequence. It would have been so easy. And the jokes they replace it with aren't really any good.
No. Well, and I will say there's something off about the writing in this game. Yeah. Like there's a moment that I had to call out where it's in the Marge centric when you first get to Marge, where Homer says to Marge, because her power is she has a vacuum and she can like suck things in, then like spit it back out at the enemies. And Homer says to Marge, "Marge, did you bring your vacuum cleaner? You've got to learn to chill out." And then Marge replies to him and just says, "Shut up, Homer. Vacuum power activate."
I laughed out loud at that. It's so out of pocket.
It's
like,
so
what?
Weird.
Shut up, Homer.
Yeah, it's like, this is not how they, like, also Homer saying, like, "You've got to learn to chill out." Like, I could see him saying that in that era, I guess, but it just, like, feels so out of place and so weird. Like,
I guess it's more 2008 Simpsons than it was 1994
Shut
Simpsons.
up, Homer.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird.
It's very strange. The art, however, the splash screens for each level are gorgeous. Like, they're just
cool
drawings, and I think these are unique for the game too. Like, I don't think I've seen these before.
No, they definitely are unique for the game. Yeah.
And it's like the one for Explosion Land, I didn't clip it in, but I think it's Homer just like walking through like the minefield and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Torture Land, this one's a little off because Marge isn't in this one, but Marge is shown strapped to a table with like the robots about to, like, you know, cut her with a saw.
Yeah.
Torture Land, which again it's kind of flipped because Marge is in Torture Land, but Lisa's in the other one.
That's confusing.
Or sorry, Unnecessary Medical Land is the other one I was just talking about.
Yeah.
Torture Land shows Lisa in a Iron Maiden. It's just cool. Like the art is just sick as shit. I like it.
It's good. They're really cool drawings, and again in their Itchy and Scratchy Land outfits, which I like a lot.
Yes, like it's the dichotomy again of like what's happening with like the art style.
Yeah.
There had to have been like, they must have sent them like, here's how these characters should look.
Right.
And then they just didn't care about like the writing or anything like that.
Because they even do Maggie in the ball pit. Like, they don't have to explain Maggie not being there, but they do the same Maggie in the ball pit joke as in the episode, but just like not as good. Like, yeah. So like they are following the beats very appropriately.
It's very strange. It's very strange.
This, I have no context for this, so I don't know if this has anything to do with anything. Is it possible that the game designers or the people making this game were not American? They were like outsourced to another country potentially.
Oh yeah, it was a Russian company.
Yeah, so that could be part of it. That like that maybe they had the episode, but it wasn't translated, or like the translation wasn't very good, so they were just kind of so this is like, you know, Russian people trying to write English jokes, maybe.
Yeah.
You know.
That's fair. It also might be that like, you know, like the "Shut Up, Homer" joke like might just be, I don't know. Like maybe
it's
like
stuff that it might have made more sense to them that when translated doesn't, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. This game was like a kind of pleasant, like you said, it was kind of a pleasant surprise. And like some of the mechanics, let's talk about that, is like when you're playing through this, it's usually you're walking around as Homer. Like you basically play most of the game as Homer, and you're trying to go through these different levels, and the main mechanics are kind of recycled over and over again. You're basically avoiding spikes, avoiding the robots and stuff like that, and you're trying to get to a family member who will then have like a special ability for sort of like the end game. It's kind of like the boss, right? Or like mid bosses and stuff like that.
Sure.
Bart shoots a slingshot and it's like turns into like a, point or aim, shooting the robots. I kind of was a little disappointed by the fact that like most of the characters do the same thing, where it's basically just like you're aiming something at the robots. What did you think about that?
I like the vacuum stuff. That's what I like the most out of this.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we watched the video of it, so I don't know how it plays, but like, I think the vacuum was the only thing that I think was cool in this whole game. Really, everything else is very fine, very basic, But I think like, the vacuum, it seemed like an inspired mechanic because you pull stuff and shoot it out. Everyone else, everyone else is just like, Homer rolls a bowling ball. Bart has the projectile. Like, I don't know, like whatever. It's very basic. The vacuum actually felt inspired, which was cool.
It did. And I think I liked the idea of Lisa's ability, which is like she like reprograms robots and then makes like bombs to like blow them up, but it just plays exactly as like Bart's ability.
It doesn't
it's kind of,
I mean, I do think that it's cool that Marge gets the coolest thing ultimately, which is very rare for her. I was worried for a while because it takes a long time before she shows up. I was like, is this going to be another one of those fucking things when Marge just never shows up in the game? But like, no, she gets the coolest power.
She does. I will say, I don't think they don't design the levels around it that well, because like she can like arc it and like, do cool stuff with that, but it doesn't look like you ever needed to. So I agree with you of Marge's being like the best. Bart shows up the most, I think, obviously outside of Homer. And then there's a little bowling mini game where Homer throws a bowling ball and you can get like a extra bowling ball and just like knock down the enemies and stuff. But
that's right. Yeah.
Outside of that, it really is just like a lot of walking around.
And a lot of the same puzzles over and over again, just the spikes on the floor and just avoid a robot. Like, but again, it's like I have to have space for this being a mobile game from this era, because like they're not that complicated. They're not made for you to be like putting a ton of time and patience into. It's just like you play it sometimes and maybe you'll pick it up again in a couple of weeks when you're bored again. Like, you know, so like I don't know. I could this one more than Minutes to Meltdown. I could see like a DS version of this that's a more full game, but it would need more variety if it was made into a full game.
Absolutely, yeah. But I could see it becoming one, like
for sure.
I absolutely think they could do that. And then the other mechanic we should note too is like you can collect Springfieldians, members of Springfield, and like save them essentially. So it's like obviously not true to the episode, but it is like an added little thing for the player to do, which is fine. I love some of the character models. The little tiny fucking Millhouse.
It's so funny.
I laughed so hard. I like also Lisa's character model too. It's just
what's
like
happening
almost
with her? Yeah.
It's just almost like not T-posing, but she just kind of is like so stiff.
Yeah.
That little Millhouse though, I fucking love that little.
The weird
Millhouse.
like
it's
it
so
mixed
cool
because it looks like he has like stars in his eyes.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
Yeah, this one was. I mean, it was kind of delightful. Like I didn't get to play it, of course, but like it was a fun one to watch. And honestly, if I could figure out how to make this work on my computer, I would play through it because it's not long. This one, I mean, Minutes to Meltdown is a half hour. This one probably takes an hour at most.
Yeah,
but that's fine. Like,
and just the delight of the attention to detail. Like even like Bart having stink bombs in this, and he had a stink bomb in that episode, in the Scratchy Land episode. Like just little things that like console games that we played don't have this much dedication to being like true to the text that they're adapting, It's like, I kind of, and I have to imagine that in a different world, like, especially, if this did better, or maybe even if like things went differently with the iPhone or whatever, and they were making more of these types of Simpsons mobile games, I have to imagine they would just find more random episodes that are famous and find some weird way to adapt them. Like Bart, like you have Bart riding an elephant and they're adapting the Stampy episode or something like that, you know, like weird iconic things from Simpsons history and just adapting it. I think it's a really smart idea that I'm sort of surprised we didn't never see more of.
Like very like you have elements of that in other games, right? Like in the Simpsons game, like you have references to Treehouse of Horror. The Treehouse of Horror game like is probably like the Night of the Living Treehouse of Horror is probably the closest one to doing that, where like you have individual stages that are inspired by, but like this is the really the only one where it's like, here's an actual episode of the TV show, make it a game. Like,
and it does make me feel like if they ever, I mean, who knows if there will ever be any Simpsons games ever again. I don't know. But if they ever do any more again, I think they could do things like this now, because especially now there's so much nostalgia for classic Simpsons. It's all over. It's so easily accessible. All like the show constantly does references to Simpsons memes and past Simpsons things. Like this is kind of an interesting proof of concept of that like, it was a 14-year-old episode that they're making a game out of, and it kind of works as long as you're a Simpsons fan. And if you're not a Simpsons fan, it doesn't make a difference to you how old the reference is anyway, you know?
Yeah. This is a on the fly question. And it's loaded. So if you can't think of an answer, I can just cut this. But is there an episode or episodes that you think would make really good, just like simple games? Like I think like there's a couple that like immediately come to mind for me, but I don't know how it would necessarily work. But like I think Deep Space Homer is one that like comes to mind that I think they could do something with.
Any of the ones that like, I think Itchy and Scratchy Land was such a perfect go-to because it's one where the Simpsons are out of their element and also have a clear antagonist that is like out of the norm that they're fighting. That's like very distinct, but also very memorable. Like I think stuff like that. So yeah, Deep Space Homer makes sense because it's Homer out of the norm, but also a very well remembered episode that is easy to insert video game action into without it feeling weird. And I think in the same way that like the Treehouse of Horror game was like that, because you could just do anything with it. That is a wonderful question though, because I feel like there's got to be some really good examples. Like there's probably something you could do with Bart's Comet, or even Marge versus the Monorail has a lot of action in it, and you could easily get some action sequences out of that. Actually, I think that would be a good one, and that's such a well-remembered episode. Yeah,
I was so speaking of out of their element, and you probably couldn't, I mean, you wouldn't do this episode, but like one that came to mind when you said out of their element was the City of New York versus Homer Simpson. I could see them, you know, that could work, but
I'm surprised that there was never just a Bart versus Sideshow Bob video game. And I think you could take any number of Sideshow Bob episodes and turn it into a game.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. Yeah, I think there's probably like a list. Maybe that'll be a fun exercise. It's just like making a list. And if like listeners, if you have any that you can think of, like that you think would make a good, like just like pretty much direct translation of a episode to a game.
Oh, I think I maybe just had a Galaxy Brain idea. You do a 22 short films about Springfield game, and every level is a completely different game style because it's following a different character's little mini story.
I was thinking that one too. I was also thinking the what is it? The spin-off spectacular?
Spin-off showcase. That
spin-off showcase.
Yeah,
that could be a fun one. But no, 22 short films.
That feels like a gimme, actually. That's like a genius idea.
They could do it. And like, again, like these don't have to be like, you know, it doesn't have to be like a full like developed thing, but like it also is kind of, this is a fun exercise too, because like when you start looking at like episodes of The Simpsons and thinking about it this way, it doesn't have to be like an isometric like walking around simulator game. Like Homer's Barbershop Quartet as a like rhythm game. You know, like that'd be kind of sick. That's right? Really like
some really weird like surreal game based on the Space Coyote episode.
Yeah, like I mean there's room for that. And it, again, they don't have to be like, I mean hell, like I think even like I mean, it'd be hard to do this now because everybody knows the answer. But like, if you did Who Shot Mr. Burns as like a point and click like
Mystery.
noir investigation game. You know?
Yeah.
But
it's a lot of potential, and that's being squandered by not making any more games.
Yeah, and I mean, we got a imperfect, and like, to be clear, these games are not good. Like, I just want to say it up front. I don't think these are good games.
But they're old mobile games, which I think you have to know what you're getting with those. I think even at the time, nobody was playing these thinking that it was going to be a life-changing experience.
Right.
They're just like a game you play when you're bored.
But I would love to know if others have like thoughts about like games that you could do this with, so you could translate, and like if you have like a specific genre of like how you would do it. I think that would be a really fun. I would love to hear from people on that. So definitely let us know. And then finally, I did just want to call out, I do love the end screen on this when you beat the game. Like, it's just so good. Like that that's like a poster.
The poster, and Marge just like on Homer's leg, like crouched down, like on those old like pulpy fantasy novels, or, like the original Star Wars poster kind of thing. Yeah, it's good.
It's good. And then once you beat the game, it's just like, I guess you can play it over again if you want.
Sure.
That's it.
Yeah. Right.
So,
right.
Any final thoughts on these two games?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this was a fun. I wasn't really knowing, I didn't really know what to expect with this, because it's kind of a swerve to do the mobile games. And anytime I bring up that, like, yeah, we're doing the mobile games, people will be like, "Oh, you mean Tapped Out?" And it's like, no, the mobile games you've never heard of. Like, we will do Tapped Out, but like these are one. I think these are kind of weird little hidden gems, I think, and I don't say that because they're good games necessarily, but they're representative of a very particular era of time that was very short-lived, and I think showcase what they're good examples of what those games were like, and there's not much to them, but they're kind of charming in that way. Like, they feel akin to like a Flash game or something, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's like your names that aren't good, but you're not expecting them to be good. You're expecting them to be something that you can kind of just like play for a little bit, and you know, it takes you back to a particular point in time, and then you move on. And I think that's kind of cool. And you know, and it does make me feel like we have lost something. Not that we've lost mobile, like these games aren't good. We're not a net negative society for not having this game anymore. But this type of Simpsons game that could have existed if time was different, and you know, there was more flexibility in just making little Simpsons games based on episodes. It does make me feel like we have lost something by not having the capability of doing. There's like no platform for stuff like that exists anymore, and that is a little weird.
Yeah. I don't want to download an app for every single episode of a Simpsons game that they're never going to make, of course. But I agree with all that. I think these were fun little ones to have discovered, and I came out of the experience like more positive on them than I expected these to be pretty trash.
But no, that they don't feel like the slop games that exist now, interestingly.
Which is good.
Also, I just want to mention, because I said like the belly button thing at the top, like there's commentary that you get like in Meltdown specifically from Comic Book Guy we didn't mention. It's not really that well written. It's like, it's fine. Like, they're very basic jokes and stuff like that, but there is some fun like trashing the player of just sort of like, I know you got a taco in one of your hands, but then I want to play this game. Worst cell phone game ever. Like stuff like that. Or I do like the line, "What else are you going to do with your phone? Call another human?" I thought that was pretty funny and prescient too. So like, there's little nuggets of like Simpsons humor at this era of cell phones that also is a little bit prescient of like what phones will become, of like, you just never put your phone down, but also never call people on it. Like, that is kind of funny.
Yeah. No, you're right. We didn't mention the Comic Book Guy of it all. And the belly button lint actually, I think, is from Minutes of Meltdown, because he crashes his car. Yeah. But
that's right. Comic Book Guy is Itchy and Scratchy Land narration, and the belly button lint, there is no narrator in that. There's just random things that say what you do, and he crashes his car. That's right. I got those two things swapped. Comic Book Guy is only in Itchy and Scratchy Land. You're correct.
It's very important that we're correct about this, Derek.
Yeah, because people were going to write, all the hardcore fans of these games were going to.
They know. Know.
Yeah. I also just will always love the screenshot of a little Homer with his with the text, "I quit. I can't do this anymore," next to it.
It's ridiculous. Like, yeah. It's ridiculous some of the stuff that
the
that is
potential
said in these
memes
games.
that you could pull out of this game.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's wild. This
Yeah.
freaking these nobody played these games. Nobody.
Yeah.
And there's some funny stuff in there, but
Yeah.
Anyway, but yes, that's it for this game. We have actually one more game in chronology left, and then we got some bonus stuff that we'll be jumping into. But for the actual published licensed games, really all that's left is Simpsons Tapped Out. So that's our next in chronological order that we'll be covering, but have some bonus stuff that'll be coming your way as well. Otherwise, if our ideas are intriguing to you and you wish to subscribe to our newsletter, be sure to follow us on Instagram. We are at Simpsons Gaming Pod. You can also email us questions, corrections, or just Simpsons quotes you really like at simpsonsgaming@gmail.com. You can also follow us each individually. Derek, where can folks find you and all of your great stuff?
Yeah, sure. You can find me most places at Derek B. Gale. My other podcasts include Walloping Websnappers, where you look at every Spider-Man cartoon ever made, Skreeonk, where you look at the Godzilla films, and Gimmicks, where we look at high concept episodes of television. I think we're also going to have another episode dropping with Falling with Style some point, I think next month, because that's when Toy Story 5 comes out, and and I believe Tommy's going to be a guest on that one, so look forward to that as well. Question mark. I can't say that I'm super excited, but we'll find out together if we enjoy that one or not, and if Pixar has done something else homophobic in the meantime. And I guess if you're listening when this episode drops, because this drops on the 27th, right?
Yep.
I'm going to be in Kaiju Brooklyn. I know this has nothing to do with The Simpsons, but if you're going to be at a con, I'm going to be at Kaiju Brooklyn this weekend. So if you happen to listen to this and also will be there, if you're also a fan of Kaiju, or just will be in the Brooklyn area, I guess maybe you'll find me. So you can find me there. Feel free to hunt me down and, I don't know, beat me up or something if you want, or tell me you like my podcast. I don't know. But I'll be there. That's it. What about you, Tommy?
If you find Derek, bring him a Bartzilla or a Momthra from Virtual Bart.
Please.
And then I guess Homer Kong is technically
also absolutely
Kaiju too. So
for sure,
it fits. It fits. As for me, I'm at Akrakama on social. You can also check out my other show, Distant Echoes, a Star Wars podcast, where my partner Cass and I watch every episode of every Star Wars TV series in whatever order we please. This podcast is also a proud member of the Glitterjaw Podcast Collective. If you're looking for other queer media podcasts, you can check out the full roster of Glitterjaw shows at glitterjaw.com. And hey, there's still a few days left in the month of May, and we mentioned it at the top of the episode. We have a survey. We're looking for your feedback on the shows that we produce on Glitterjaw. It is a collective-wide survey, or just your podcast listening habits in general. Tell us your thoughts. You can find that survey at bit.ly/glitterjawpodsurvey. And you can also make sure to give us your email if you so choose, and you can be entered in for a chance to win a $50 gift card.
Yeah.
Courtesy of the collective. I was looking for the word courtesy and couldn't find it.
But do it but you only got a couple days to do it. Closes on May 31st. So make sure you do that.
Make sure you do that. And our incredible theme music was recorded by the band whose name you'd love to touch but mustn't touch. That's right. It's Max Power. A few of those dudes are now in a Taylor Swift cover band. Go check out Taylor's Version. They are Taylor's Version VA on social. And of course, remember, as always, tell your parents to listen to Lee Carvallo's potting challenge.
I quit. I can't do this anymore. Go to hell.
We quit. We quit, everyone. We're not going to do it. No
tapped out. We're tapped out. We're tapped out.
We're tapping out. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Go to hell.